everyone, and welcome to the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 Spoilercast. I'm your host, Captain Logan, and tonight's panel consists of me and Eric Holden. And Mr. Goodplod.
Once you go duck, you never go cluck.
Connor Nielsen.
Howdy.
And, for the first time in a good long time, Jackson Rasco.
I am Rasco.
We are all incredibly clever this evening, may I say. Guys, thanks so much for joining me. Of course, I've been on a hiatus for a bit working on a novel, and as promised, we are here to talk about Guardians of the Galaxy, so taking a little bit of a break from my break so that we can do some superhero movie review. Talk about the nitty-gritty with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Eric and I saw it the other day. Eric has unfortunately only had a chance to see it the one time because he had to work and stuff.
My opinions are the same.
I saw it again today. Thanks, buddy.
I apologize to no one.
Oh, you don't have to contribute anything else. You can just sit back and relax and take a nap. See you later, buddy. And then what was I going to say? And then I don't know about these guys, but have you guys all seen it again, or just one time?
I just saw it like 2 hours ago.
I've seen it two times.
Oh, cool.
I saw it one time, and then I was planning to watch it eventually this week. But then you asked me to do the spoiler cast, so I was like, oh no, I have to watch it immediately again. So I did.
Thanks for doing your homework, buddy. Appreciate it. Thanks for watching live, folks. If you're doing that, we're going to try to refer to the comments as much as we can tonight. If you have things that you want to respond to that we're saying throughout this to help contribute to our conversation, feel free at any time to write in the chat box. And we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. We're going to go ahead and go round robin to the guys that won on the How We Felt About, as we always do, and ask them to give us a best moment, worst moment. But as we're doing that, I would like, if you guys could start this right now, the viewing audience in the chat box to start writing your favorite things about the movie. And a little bit later, we'll let you also write your worst things. So everybody, you guys also, you'll get to participate in this too. Write your best thing right now. A little bit later, we'll let you write your worst thing, and we'll kind of split this up into a couple of different sections and use that to help facilitate our conversation. And that should help us talk about a lot of other elements that we might have forgotten to mention or that just wouldn't otherwise come up. So we're going to try to include you guys more than we ever have before, and we'll see if that works. We'll see how that goes. All right, let's go ahead and get right into it. We're going to start with Rasco. And Rasco, just 2 hours ago, you walked out of the theater. How'd you feel about the Guardians of the Galaxy sequel, and what are your best thing and your worst thing? Go ahead.
Well, I really like this movie. I was expecting to like it, but I didn't expect the movie to really feel like it. To me, I'll go ahead and get in my best thing. My best thing was I feel like James Gunn really wasn't even interested in making the same movie again. Like it really feels like that movie happened and everyone, praised Guardians of the Galaxy. But this movie, to me, I felt was a better movie. And maybe I think I've seen a lot of people say that they felt like it didn't quite recapture the original. To me, I think the original, it's a really fresh movie, and it executes the premise very well. But I feel like this is actually a better movie. And I really enjoyed how it just didn't really feel like it even wanted to be it. Not that movies try to, but oftentimes you get into this place where a sequel to a big movie like Guardians of the Galaxy that kind of just came out of nowhere. You always have to be careful because you walk into a movie like that, and because of what the general public liked about the original, you're afraid that that might get into the person behind the camera's head too much, and that they might kind of just make the same movie again. And I was afraid of that, and I was afraid that it would rely on all of the things that we liked about the first one to carry us through it, and it didn't do that. And it felt like James Gunn, he knew that that was going to be the biggest challenge with this movie, was doing Guardians of the Galaxy again, but knowing that general audiences might want too much of the original, and kind of having to fight the public reaction to a movie was probably pretty difficult in the writing process. My least favorite thing about this movie is probably just that there are a few too many moments where a character will just kind of explain way too much about, for example, like Nebula kind of has a moment where it just stops and she explains this story with her and Gamora and this rivalry that they had when they were kids, and how every time Gamora won, Nebula had to have her body altered mechanically and stuff like that. And it's not that I really do like that bit of backstory, but I just feel like there are like 3 times in the movie where someone just kind of feels the need to explain a little bit too much about their past. And that's probably my worst thing.
Yeah, and Rasco, I would add too much about their past, and also too much about the what we're supposed to be feeling about it in the moment. Some, I think. Let's hear from Connor.
So I've seen this movie twice now. I watched it opening night, so Thursday night, and me and my brother were 2 of 4 people in the theater. It was great, and
Wow.
I loved it. Right, I liked it, and I was surprised at what it was, because I was amazed that this isn't even, like as Raskin said, it's not even trying to be the first movie, and I loved that. But then when I watched it again with a packed theater, which was a great packed theater, that never happens. It was great.
The best stories this time?
No!
I was excited to hear the Connor rant. I was excited to hear Connor just go off on somebody. But not today.
The people behind me wouldn't shut up during the trailers, and then when the movie started, they didn't talk the whole time. It was great.
Today I had the opposite. I had a couple of kids said nothing through the trailers. First 5 minutes of the movie, they were on their phones. They wouldn't stop.
Oh my god.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Connor.
The best thing about this movie is I like how ambitious James Gunn goes with this. He asks a lot of his audience to go through something that is not nearly as action-packed or as breezy or as light as that first movie, and he asks to and he takes his themes of family and makes them more complex and more intelligent, and he goes deeper with that, and he makes it a very natural continuation of that first film while also adding in themes of individual purpose. There's really interesting stuff going on here, and that's what I really liked about it, and how naturally he builds off of that first movie, but while also making it something entirely different. My least favorite thing, though, is when those ambitions aren't quite met, which does happen every once in a while, and it sticks out because everything else is a very well-oiled machine. I think the weakest elements, though, are when there are scenes that have a lot of people and he has to give everybody a line. I think that the ending funeral with Yondu was great, and it went on for way too long, and everybody had to have a line. And that started to grate on me, especially stuff with Nebula. She has to have a line because, oh, she's also here. That was stuff that I wasn't crazy about. But
to the point where I couldn't understand how she was sure that the person who referred to her was referring to her, because somebody calls her Smurf. And I was like, well, that could apply to a couple of people in this room, and you're not from Earth and wouldn't know what that means?
Yeah, Yondu's over there. What's going on? I did really like this movie, though, and I think Kurt Russell is the best Marvel villain we've had in a very long time. I think he is great in this film.
Good plot.
Well, what I thought overall about it, well, my best thing, I think, is what people might, a lot of people might say is their worst thing, which is that the movie has multiple different subplots. You know, it goes into many different directions regarding each character having their own sort of story arc to go with. And for me, I actually like that type of storytelling where it's an ensemble and you have all these different characters with each with their own problems, because that's how life is. Life is filled with a bunch of people that each have their own problems to deal with. And it's not like most movies where the center of the universe is this one person and only he matters and everyone is just living in their world. No, everyone's got their own problem, and they all have their own story arcs and their own ways of dealing with their problems, such as Rocket realizing that he's the same as Yondu, and Drax sort of having an on-again, off-again fling sort of thing with Mantis, and the sisters having their thing, and of course the father, son, and all that. And I really like that, and how although it admittedly it doesn't come all together like I would have liked. Like they sort of all of those subplots sort of like end in their own way separately. So I might have preferred if it all like came together better. But anyway, that's what I probably liked most. And I agree with Connor about the best villain being Ego. That's another thing that I think is the best is that I really like the villain, surprise, since I'm the villain, and I'll get more into that later about ego. But anyway, my worst thing is that, and this is what I've had with a lot of movies, and I know other people have had this problem too. It feels like, and this movie should be the most forgivable about it, but it feels like this movie keeps stopping dead in its tracks just to make these really long jokes that go on longer than they need to, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think the best example is the one with Kraglin, right after Nebula gives that really long monologue about how much she hates her sister, and then he breaks it by having this awkward silence about what she should actually do with the money, and it just goes on for way too long. And
well, that was the thing that I had, was it felt like for the first half of the movie we couldn't end the scene without a joke, and the joke at the end of every scene I didn't like. Like I could have cut every scene by 30 minutes or 30 seconds. Because
it's not Star Trek the Motion Picture, dude. It's not that long.
Like every scene ended and then we pan over to somebody making a joke.
Yeah, pretty much like that. Yeah.
But Eric, the root wasn't ripe.
Yep.
Yeah,
They set that up so much for such a bad payoff.
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, it just felt like the movie was waiting for the audience to laugh, and it was made worse by the fact that the audience wouldn't laugh for a lot of those jokes.
Yeah, and there were some contrived setups to make sure that somebody was doing something or had something in the moment where that had to happen. So, like, why did she carry that all the way out there with her? Like, it's really strange that she wouldn't... She had all kinds of opportunities to take a bite before that, but she waits until then so that we can end that scene that way. And I feel that way about even some major character arcs and subplots, which we'll get into a little bit later. In particular, I've got a thing with Ego and Star-Lord and just getting all that set up in the first place. But we'll talk about it. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the chat. I always want to say let's go to the phones. We should do a call-in show at some point. But anyway, we'll go ahead and go to the chat. We'll start with some of our viewers and chatters' favorite things, and we'll respond to those and use those as springboards for some topics here as we get into the movie. So Sam in the comments says that his favorite thing was either Yondu or the Watchers, and I guess we can go ahead and get the Watcher thing out of the way real quick. That is a thing that, of course, people have been wanting for a long time. It's been a big fan theory that Stan Lee has got to be a Watcher because he's in all these movies, and it looks like the same guy every time. So surely that's not a bunch of different people that look like Stan Lee. And sometimes he seems to have almost a cosmic awareness, although the one where I think he has the most cosmic awareness is not even a Marvel Studios film. It's Spider-Man 3. But I'm sure that the big fan theory moving forward now, since we no longer can speculate about that, is going to be, well, that's the thing that ties it to every other Marvel thing that's not a Marvel Studios thing, is that now we have kind of an unspoken multiverse, maybe.
He's also a real bad watcher when you think back on some of the cameos. In Iron Man 3, he's a judge at a beauty contest.
Yeah.
In Avengers,
he died in the Incredible Hulk. He died.
Like superheroes in New York, that doesn't make sense. Like, he's do not interfere.
Yeah,
Number one rule.
He's interfering a little much, isn't he?
From the looks of it, it doesn't seem like he's a Watcher, as he is like some kind of being that's like on par with the Watchers, like on the same level
that's
as
what I
the
was
Watchers.
trying to figure out.
Like he doesn't look like him. He's in a spacesuit.
Just so that it can actually be Stan Lee. Because the problem is, if it's a Stan Lee cameo where he's a Watcher, but he's not Stan Lee, then it's not a Stan Lee cameo, unless he's just voicing one. He could morph. It would also be really funny, though, just to see a standard Watcher voiced by Stan Lee. Yeah. That would be amusing.
Yep.
But yeah, in the credits, he's credited as, I wish I'd written it down. He's credited as Watchers something, rather. I got to go back and look it up.
Okay.
But I remember looking at that thinking, well, it could go either way then. He could be a Watcher, or he could kind of work sort of with them,
like
or for them.
Of the Watchers.
Ren Davis in the comments said that he is listed as the
Watchers informant. That's what it was. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sure.
So I guess he's just doing his job overzealously because his job is to inform them of things, and they're sick of that, and they get up and leave, which is hilarious. What did you guys think about finally canonicizing that? Because that's gotta, unless that was somehow rather always the plan, that's gotta be James Gunn going, okay, let's finally give the fans the things they wanted, right? Like that's pretty much the fans basically wrote that, and that's kind of cool.
And if James Gunn did it because we know Stan Lee shot a bunch of cameos, so I don't know if that was. I mean, that one seems really specifically placed, but I don't know.
Well, I would assume that
because it's when we were making this movie that we shot all those, right?
Right, but just because he shot several at once doesn't mean that the filmmakers making the movies those are for didn't have influence in what they were going to be. I don't think he shot 6 generic cameos. I think he shot specific cameos for specific movies, probably. And that tracks with the number of movies that we know for sure are getting made, and right?
I think so.
Like,
didn't he shoot like 6?
Yeah. And I think, but I don't know if that includes Deadpool and stuff, so. Or like if
I don't think so because it was Marvel Studios.
It was just Marvel Studios, yeah. Because that's the thing. I never actually read that. I heard 100,000 people say that, so I assumed that was the thing that actually happened. But anyway, did you guys have anything to say about that cameo real quick before we go on to Yondu?
Well, for me, I didn't really like that theory that much because I always envisioned John Lithgow as the Watcher, but. But since it turns out that he's not technically a Watcher, he's just the Watcher's informant, that means we could still have John Lithgow.
And the Red Hulk can punch him.
Why John Lithgow? Why John Lithgow?
Because he looks just like a Watcher. He has a big head, and he's old.
That's a great.
No, his boss
choice.
is the big head.
And he has experience playing an alien. To me, it's the perfect choice.
Real quick before we move on, or before we let other folks mention or talk about the Watcher thing, I want to mention that apparently I have Super Chat toggled and forgot about that. We've never actually used Super Chat. Somebody has put in $5 for Super Chat, so I should mention this real quick. And asked if so the way Super Chat works is you can donate to be sure that your question gets read, and this is a new thing that YouTube implemented a while back, and I had toggled it one night and didn't mention it because it never came up, but all of a sudden it's come up. So thanks a bunch to Michael Turner for putting that in. But if anybody else wants to do this during this show, please make sure that it's Guardians of the Galaxy related. He asked if I'm going to watch the Spawn reboot since I did Spawn year. Well, sure. If that ever gets made, if that ever actually happens,
have you ever actually talked about that?
I certainly will.
About the fact that no progress has ever been made. And we just keep announcing that no progress has been made.
We've talked about it on live shows quite a bit,
okay.
Yeah, in the Q&A sections. But anyway, thanks for that. Sure appreciate it, and I can't talk more about that right now because we're doing a Guardians of the Galaxy 2 Spoilercast. Let's go to Connor because I think he had something to say about the Watcher thing.
I more than anything just found it amusing. Like, oh, hey, look, it's that thing that people have been talking about for a while. I was more in awe that it's the Watchers.
Yeah,
oh
that was
my
me.
God.
I was a lot more excited that they were there. We had this debate a few weeks ago. I wasn't sure if Marvel even had the rights to the Watchers over Fantastic Four.
Sure, they have
over Fox.
And if it took an amusing little Stan Lee meta joke to get there, I don't care. We got the Watchers. That's awesome. I'll take it.
Yeah, I hope they do something with them down the road.
What's weird is that cameo makes no sense to anyone that doesn't read the comic.
No, it doesn't. But
which I appreciate.
Yeah,
but the Watchers are at least Watchers are at least a big enough deal in Marvel Comics that if you know anything about Marvel, that might have come up someplace. But I mean, I'm with you. Your general audience probably. But I would almost argue that for some people. Well, I'm probably wrong, but I was going to say maybe some people know the Watcher more likely than they would Thanos, but I don't know about that.
Not at this point.
I don't know. How many
They're more like
cartoons does he pop? Yeah. How many '90s Marvel cartoons are there where you see a lot like where you see that a Watcher come in? Because I know that's in like the '90s Fantastic Four.
He's not in Spider-Man. I don't think he's an X-Men.
He's in the superhero squad.
He is in the superhero squad.
That's true. Let me use this opportunity to mention the interdimensional thing because I think it's interesting that Doctor Strange opens up the possibility of alternate dimensions, though we don't see any parallel dimensions. And then this movie right away, we have a reference to something interdimensional in the first 2 minutes. The creature that they fight at the beginning is apparently an interdimensional being. And I think it's really amusing that the Guardians know that there are multiple dimensions, and none of our superheroes know this yet. I think that's really fun. Besides Doctor Strange, I think that's really fun. But it makes me wonder if we're not slowly seeding that so that we can start doing multiple dimensions and something akin to maybe even what if things down the road.
Well, the Guardians in the comics deal with things from other dimensions and things like that. It's all very, it's all monsters. It's that evil other realms kind of thing in the Cancerverse.
I'll be surprised if that doesn't serve as a story point in Infinity War.
Yeah.
Well, technically, the existence of Howard the Duck is also proof that there's interdimensions.
That's true.
Assuming that he's not just from some other planet in that universe, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's crazy? Quickly about that Howard the Duck cameo. When I was watching that theater in the packed, and when I was watching this movie in the packed theater, when Howard the Duck came on, everybody just went, "Oh my God! Look at it's the Duck from the other movie!" And everyone pointed at the screen.
They're not real Howard fans. They just did that because they saw the end of the last movie.
That's true, but they got a payoff to that. They didn't think they'd get a payoff to it, so that's probably why they were like, "Oh my God, it's him."
Well, for me, the payoff is him getting his own movie. That's
okay.
Not another tease.
People saw the after credits scene. I can't tell you how many times I go to Marvel movies. I watch people get up when the credits hit, and I'm like, how long has this been going on?
Our theater.
That still happens with me.
Our theater with this movie, everybody stayed.
That's not true. Some people left after like 2 of them.
Okay, but at least stayed for a couple of them.
Yeah.
Today, once again, I saw people get up and like immediately, and the movie wasn't really technically over. And this one, I think, did a better job of making that clear than other things have. Where I don't know, I kind of got this natural sense of this is going to be one of those movies where you get some scenes through the credits. I don't think it's fair to call it 6 mid-credit or after-credit scenes. It's one of those movies where the movie continues to have. Thanks, Good Plot. Good Plot knows the exact number, but I think it's fair to. I think it's fair to say that this is just one of those movies where the movie kind of keeps going. It feels more like that to me.
Okay, I need to be honest. I know it's 5 not because I counted, but because they confirmed that before the movie came out. That there was 5 mid-credit scenes.
Yeah, I knew it was 5 or 6, but anyway. So Sam also mentioned Yondu as one of his favorite things, if not his favorite thing. Especially on a second viewing, I'm going to call that mine, I think. And I liked his relationship with Rocket a lot better on a second viewing. But how do you guys feel about how he was utilized in this and kind of getting him all the way to being nearly a full-fledged member of the team before he tragically sacrifices himself at the end? And was that laid on too thick? And was it too sappy? And did we do enough with him so that he would earn it? Did you find him sympathetic, et cetera, et cetera? Let's discuss.
I loved Yondu. My favorite thing about him kind of becoming the heart of the film by the end is that you don't even realize it's happening until it's happening. You're like, whoa, I care about Yondu a whole lot. It just randomly comes out of nowhere. But it's not that they didn't do enough to set it up. It's that you just don't even realize that they're really kind of turning you around on his character until you're already turned around on him.
Well, I need to correct you guys. His name isn't Yondu, it's Mary Poppins.
That joke totally played. I thought that was really funny.
Oh, by the way, Disney is about to make another Mary Poppins movie, and I imagine everyone is going to make a Yondu joke about that now. So they sort of damaged that a little bit.
Yeah, when that poster comes out, everyone's just going to Photoshop it with Yondu's face and just say, Mary Poppins, y'all.
Yeah, they sort of like
that's going to be immediately. And yeah, I was thinking that was kind of a business thing too. I was like, well, Disney made this movie. They have a Mary Poppins thing coming. But he does look like Mary. But I can imagine like James Gunn writing the script thinking, hey, it's like Mary Poppins, and then going, wait a minute, it's a Disney movie. We can make that joke, and he just puts it in there. But that is such a funny gag. Is he cool? Yeah, he's cool. That's really funny. I thought that was one of the better gags.
I wish I got to know more about the Ravagers, because his whole arc is kind of kicked off by his meeting with Stallone.
Yeah.
I kind of wish they were in the movie more, and I got a better sense of what they are.
I think that's fair.
I think that he's been exiled from the Ravagers for a while. That's the thing I got on the second viewing. So I kind of bought that the other people weren't going to be there as much. I think that there's a sense of history between.
What's weird is Stallone says there are 100 groups of Ravagers, and you just lost 99 of them because you serviced one of them, which suggests he's not a Ravager, which makes me wonder what they are. Because you would think he would just not be a Ravager anymore. You're no longer part of us.
That's a good point.
Is
yeah.
it just like?
I kind of imagined it like
you can still plumb, but you're not one of us.
Yeah, he's like, well, I wear this patch. I'm a Ravager. It's like, well, if you got kicked out of Starfleet, you couldn't go around continuing to call yourself a Starfleet officer just because you got a comm badge.
Yeah, I wanted more with that.
I think
go ahead.
It's kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean 3, where there's like all of these different.
I didn't see that movie.
Well,
sorry,
you're gonna get spoiled, and I think this is kind of partially. You have all these different pirate factions, and they really have nothing to do with each other besides that they're all kind of united by the fact that they're pirates. And so I think that's kind of just what they're supposed to be. They're just like a bunch of different pirate factions that really have very little to do with each other.
But it felt more official than that. There's a specific code for the yeah.
Well, but there's also a pirate code. I mean, that's the one constant amongst pirates is the pirate code.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's a good point. I think it just as soon as you give something a logo, it looks more official.
True, but skull and crossbones.
Yeah, he's making a really good point. Yeah, I mean, like the more you talk about it, the more it doesn't sound that far away from pirates. And obviously, we're evoking pirates in the first place.
Yeah,
that was not an obscure thing to compare it to. Also, Disney. Did anybody else want to speak to the Ravager thing?
Well, about Yondu and the Ravagers. So of course, at the end of the movie, we get the original Guardians lineup. Way back in the 1960s Guardians. And for me, like that was really bittersweet because, we finally get the whole lineup of the classic Guardians, but without Yondu. And that's really sad because Yondu is like the most recognizable of that roster. He's like the most eye-catching.
I guess he was the Mohawk guy, wasn't he?
No, there's another guy that's got twin ones.
Okay.
That's the Stallone's character. They put it on his shoulders instead.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay. So is Rosenbaum the guy that's like black and white and has Captain America's shield?
No, that's he's Martinex. He's the silver one that's made out of diamonds.
But he looks more like an ice guy in this. We still have never quite perfected that, have we? That diamond glass look.
Anyway, so when we finally got them all together, it was bittersweet because wait a minute, we don't get like the most recognizable one, Yondu, but then you realize, but because of that sacrifice, he's sort of like now stapled himself as sort of the most important member of that crew, and he's the reason why the original team is back together again. So even though we might never get to see that character again, I assume like that's probably safe. Like he's a lot like Quicksilver because I don't think they would have done all that just to bring him back. So in that way, he's sort of like the most important character and probably will still be the most remembered one of that roster.
So to that point, when Rocket and Yondu are in prison together, he talks about how he and the other Ravager captains were a group like you people when he's talking to Rocket. And so we already got our original Guardians of the Galaxy in this timeline, but if we did have Yondu at the end, then it would take a lot away from, like, if he didn't die in this movie and then he's in a mid-credit scene where it's like, hey, we're the original Guardians, wink wink audience, we're all getting together, I would have felt cheated because it would have been one of those, oh, you didn't kill him, that would have made the most dramatic sense, but you killed him because you didn't kill him because you guys wanted to do an original Guardians thing later, and it adds more importance to this story, I think.
Yeah, he can't come back.
Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, at the same time, I don't think that the majority of audiences would have understood the significance of that. Yeah, I'm surprised they did that. I mean, that feels real obscure ultimately. Like I don't think the majority of people even realized that there was a pre-Guardians team and that.
And I know those guys at least by look, and I didn't know that that's who they were.
Honestly, I didn't write off either. I needed that explained to me.
They're completely redesigned from what I know them looking like.
Because I had heard that, and I asked Eric about it. I was like, "Is that the original Guardians?"
I was like,
I don't think so. But I couldn't figure out why else you would, you would have them pose like that.
And they're played by notable actors like Ving Rhames and Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
And Miley Cyrus.
Well, I would assume that we'll get maybe like a Guardians against Guardians thing, or like.
See, and that's where you do a tie-in comic, right? You go and you tell you tell the adventures of the old Ravagers. But where's that comic?
But I bet that's what we do for the third movie, and I wonder how much both of those scenes, that and the thing with the Sovereign, were setting up. We're kind of just telegraphing what the plot of the next
I think the Sovereign's setting up Infinity War.
I think so
too. Because it's all Adam Warlock, and
I mean that was my initial thought, but I don't know that for sure. So
wouldn't that be a weird place to continue that particular story arc with the Sovereigns? Like just have that be a part of Civil War.
Well, the Sovereigns would be weird, but Adam Warlock is essential to Infinity Gauntlet. He is the main character of Infinity Gauntlet with Thanos. Thanos and Adam Warlock are like the arch enemies.
On the other hand, he's not even born yet.
No, and it's weird because they set him up in Guardians, and then they set him up in Guardians too.
Yeah, I also
wanted different ways.
Yeah, I also wanted Adam Warlock to be in the Infinity Gauntlet movies. But it just seems really awkward and forced if they tried to do that now, given like what position he's in at the moment, Adam Warlock.
But setting him up and not doing it would be weirder. Like if there was no mention of Adam Warlock, it would be fine. But if you're gonna set up Adam Warlock, I want him in the Infinity movies. Mm-hmm. Unless the plot of Guardians 3 is Space Jesus. Like,
I mean, I guess we'll just
do that.
See where we go with it. I mean, it's not like we haven't done these kind of, again, if you're a comic fan. If you don't know any of this stuff, you're like, Adam, what does that mean? I guess I'll find out later. Like, I figured I would know what Thanos was by now.
He's Space
Jesus. He created the humankind. Well, he created the humankind from the Bible. What?
Is that what we're doing? Folks are going to be asking.
He's going to go back in time, and she's created the human race.
That's why we put Mr. Blue Sky in this movie, because it's got that line up with the human race.
He's originally who I thought was going to be Star-Lord's dad, because they're like, he's like a beam of light, and then when they announced Kurt Russell was Star-Lord's dad, I was like, well, yeah, he's perfect for Adam Warlock.
That's just hilarious. Because I'm sorry, what were you saying? Good point.
No, I just said that's what I thought too, that it was Adam Warlock. It seemed too perfect, but instead they decided to go the ego route.
But yeah, we should get back to the Yondu thing, because we haven't begun to discuss the actual character arc and him as a father figure and all of that. But I just want to mention that this would, Eric, if they do that, if that's a setup for Guardians as opposed to Avengers, that this would not be the first time we've done something counterintuitive for comic fans, like the way
we came out right after Ultron. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
but I don't know why you do Adam Warlock if you're not gonna, like, that's his thing.
Yeah, but I didn't know why you would do Ultron if you like why would you have Iron Man create Ultron instead of having that be an Ant-Man thing, and then it worked really well. So
yeah,
and
we just don't know yet. I mean,
and from the moment we first saw Vision in the MCU, it seemed sort of like evident that he might be the stand-in for Warlock eventually.
Yeah,
I can see that.
Get-go.
Yeah, I've heard other people suggest that makes it, especially because he's got an Infinity Stone. But then it also seems like he could easily just get taken out right away because he has an Infinity Stone and he can't really exist if it's in a gauntlet. But anyway, we should move on and talk more about this movie, shall we? Eric and I were talking the other night about we both had, and like I said, I loved Yondu in this a lot, and I teared up at the end both times. But Yondu has a line at the end of the first movie, of course, that sets up this dad thing that I thought was kind of forced in the first Guardians, where he's like, "That guy's a jackass," and Eric and I both kind of had a little bit of a tough time buying that, or it felt a little bit like this was kind of retroactive where the idea that that the real reason he took in Peter Quill was because he didn't want him to get killed. He didn't want him to get hurt by his real father, and he cared about him, and it wasn't just about putting him in tight space and stuff. For the sake of this movie, I thought that was all real touching, and I bought it. But he doesn't seem like exactly the same character he was in the first place, and maybe that's a necessary evil.
That I have with almost every character in this movie.
Yeah, sure. But I think that's ultimately a necessary evil, probably. But it does feel like growing pains with the first film as a setup movie.
In the first movie, it almost feels like his arc is realizing that he does care about Peter. Whereas here it seems like, well, he always cared about Peter, and that's why he kept him around. And those don't exactly fit together in my brain.
I haven't seen. I wanted to rewatch the original, the first one, before watching this one, and I never got around to it. So you're probably right. I thought it felt natural within the context of this particular story, but
yeah, he's not like a totally different character like you feel like Drax is. Yeah, and we'll talk about that. But I mean, don't you think like he's still the same guy?
Oh no, he's the same guy.
But I kind of question those motivations a little bit, and at the same time, that is kind of that fun writing yourself in a corner to see if you can write yourself out of it. So, and I really respect that kind of writing. I'm pretty sure that Gunn had not decided that the father was going to be Ego the Living Planet by the end of that first movie. If you listen to Gunn, or has he claimed, or did he say that
Gunn claims he knew his plan all along was that Ego was his dad, and then there was a legal question about whether Marvel actually owned Ego.
Oh, that's right.
And he was like, okay, well, I have no plan B, so I really hope we own that character.
But yeah, the other issue with that is, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I forgot where I was going with that.
Yondu character development connection.
Yeah. Oh, I know what it was. So because the other thing that makes that makes it make sense that he was thinking that was Peter Quill's got to have some reason he survived touching an Infinity Stone,
which also would have made sense if his dad was Adam Warlock.
I feel like that kind of helps to make that the end of that last movie a little bit less sappy, which is has been an interesting thing moving forward with these movies. When you look at them, and I talk about this all the time, when you look at them as chapters of a greater whole, and also their own stories. You know, Iron Man 2 is not a great movie, but I appreciate it more after Winter Soldier, and there's a lot of examples of this. And this has even happened. Yeah, we're talking about all the way through Marvel Mania, and this is even happened some with just the sequel after the first one. And of course, just with regular movie franchises, this happens to some degree. But that was a thing we need. You know, it's sort of like Force Awakens. There are things that they're going to have to explain before I can have reads on certain things. In that, now that we know that he was part God, okay, that ending's a little bit less sappy.
One thing I really liked about this is that it's so thematically tight. And how it builds on that second one in a very natural way. And it makes things like that have more plot sense than thematic sense, and it felt more natural to me than that first one did. In a way, it blends its plot and its themes with its characters.
I don't know if I would agree with natural. I think everything is broadcast from like word go. Like I know the arc pretty much everyone's going on from the beginning, and I think Drax is a completely different character. I think Rocket is like Back to the Future 2 Marty McFly, adds some kind of character flaw that wasn't there inherently.
Ooh, I don't agree with that.
Rocket's hanging out with Groot the entire first movie, and he's not doing what he's doing in this movie where I have to push away anyone close to me. He's been with Groot for a while, and he cares about Groot.
But Groot, I think, is the exception, maybe. That like they have kind of an unspoken thing, not like Gamora and Star-Lord, but they have this kind of unspoken relationship where we don't really know how they got together, what exactly that deal is. It's almost like a bodyguard kind of relationship, and at any given point you can decide who is the bodyguard of which one of them. As I've been thinking about the family ideas, the family dynamics with this movie, I've been kind of in my mind casting these characters in their respective roles, at least to me, of of what they would be like in a family. And I see Rocket and Groot now, especially after we have this new kind of second baby Groot reincarnated out of the first one, which was also a thing that I enjoyed a lot more a second time and appreciated all the family stuff. But with that, and Star-Lord as like his new father and all of that. But anyway, but I kind of see Rocket and Groot now as kind of like the kids on the ship. So like Gamora and Star-Lord are like their parents, and then they're the kids, and then Drax is like the weird uncle.
I was gonna say you see the weird uncle.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I'm looking at them more like they're siblings, and I don't know how they got that way. But I'm just saying I don't think it's necessarily a tacked on thing. And like he was lashing out in similar ways in the first movie too, and he was also kind of mean to everybody. I think he's dialed that up to 11 now because of his fears, and he's worried that like he's going to lose all of them, or that he can't actually trust them. There's a trust question through this. We've got that great Drax line about like beautiful people can't trust anyone, and that doesn't entirely relate to this because that's not why Rocket has that. But Rocket is also a character who doesn't trust anyone because sentient beings have just been horrible to him.
But in the first movie, that's just how he is. In this movie, we have to make it a character flaw, and I don't think it tracks with Groot.
I don't know. I just don't know if I agree with that. I think at least, and maybe you don't think that Gunn is doing this well, but I think Gunn is just trying to explain why he's that way. It's not we've added a flaw. It's okay. He's mean to people. Let's expand.
But we make this
talk
big deal about how much
more
mean he's being.
Right.
Like
that all worked for me better on a second viewing. Maybe it would for you also.
Yeah,
I know you only had a chance to watch it once. I said in the How We Felt About. I know I sound like I'm changing my tune. I said in the How We Felt About that I was a little bit disappointed with Rocket. I loved him the second time around. So I think all that just I understood it more looking at it a little closer.
Yeah, I have the same response. He kind of annoyed me the first time I watched this, and then watching it again, I got it more and it clicked better.
Mm. There's something I also like to say about Rocket, which at first I kind of didn't like, but then after a second viewing, it kind of I kind of do like it. Is this comparison between Rocket and Howard the Duck? And I know I'm using this as an excuse to talk about Howard the Duck again, but I'm taking it.
You are. That is what you're doing.
Right? Yes. At least I'm admitting it. So I assume that Howard has the same problem that Rocket is going through, in that like they're both sort of alone in the universe because Howard is from an entirely different universe and Rocket is this experiment. And I assumed, they sort of have maybe like the same problem, but they each respond to that problem in a different way, where Rocket sees it as a reason to be alone and rejects other people, and he sort of dwells in the darkness of it. Meanwhile, Howard is just off getting laid and having parties and hanging out with people and having and smoking and drinking, and he's seeing it as a chance to get laid, while Rocket is seeing it as a reason to be depressed and sad.
Well, and if you think about it, the way you're describing Howard is kind of the way Star-Lord used to be to some degree.
Oh, I see. Because he's sort of like alone in that particular part of the universe too, since he's away from the Earthlings, even though most of the people who we hang out with look just like Earthlings.
Yeah, that's true. And have all the same slang we do and talk like we do and have a lot of the same kind of even cultural reference points in places.
Yes.
Which is sort of just an absurd choice, and I think that works most of the time. I think it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's get into some other things, shall we? First of all, real quick, because Michael Turner put up another $5 super chat. He asked if Captain Marvel made a full appearance in Guardians 2 because they mentioned him. No, I don't think so. Funny place.
Mentioned him, what?
Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel, yeah. I don't know.
Marvel?
Captain Marvel? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what he's talking about.
I heard Nathan Fillion had a cameo as like a poster of somebody like that.
That was supposed to be his
Wonder Man, and it was cut.
Never saw it. I was looking for that poster.
Oh, it was cut?
Oh, it was cut.
It was
Okay.
cut. Yeah, my brother told me that he saw like an Instagram picture that was Nathan Fillion saying, "This is a clip of my cut cameo." So
Yeah, it was meant to be in that big blob scene back on Earth.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's where it would be. Okay, well then that makes me wonder if he's not gonna be in something soon. If it's on Earth.
And the poster was you know how Simon Williams is an actor in the comic book.
Yeah.
So he's playing another Marvel character from like ancient history. I forget what the character's name, but he plays like it's like a Marvel character playing another Marvel character.
Is it Hercules? Is he playing Hercules?
It's a more obscure one.
You know, after recent Avengers comics, I actually kind of hope Hercules shows up in this world. I really like him now.
I'd really like to see Hyperion show up so we can have a good Superman on screen right now.
And Nighthawk, so we can have a good Batman on screen.
Yeah.
So, moving right along, guys.
I really just want everyone to quit and go be Squadron Supreme at Marvel, and I think that would be the best. Like Gal Gadot, Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill.
In the comments, it's Michael Reed thought says his favorite thing is Star-Lord actually being legit serious for the most part, and shooting his dad the moment he found out was pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's true.
I thought Chris Pratt was so good. He was so good.
Yeah, and at first viewing, I felt like I lost him a little bit, and I didn't have that at all.
Which I didn't have because, as we talked about, like that was the side of the movie that I was more gravitating towards, where you were more gravitating towards the Rocket and Yondu stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I was fixated on Yondu for some reason. I think just because I was really hoping that they would pull that off, and so because I like Michael Rooker, and I was really hoping that they would pull that off. And besides some kind of sappy lines toward the end, like laying some things on too thick, I think ultimately they did. I gotta say, I think it was going a little bit too far. The whole I don't use my head, I use my heart. I wish we hadn't gone as far with that as we did, where he almost says heart. I don't know.
Why does he assume his technological fin is the same as godlike powers?
He might have just been saying, look, try this. It works for me. When I'm using my brain to make something hover, it might be like using your brain to create energy or to create things from just the energy around you.
So he writes a book called On Psychic Powers, and it's like, I'm not saying this will work for everyone, but this is how my process is.
Well, they do kind of talk about it. It's not like a great explanation, but when he talks about how I made a ball, I thought as hard as I could, and I made a ball. He's like, you think I use my head when I fly this arrow? And then later it's when that scene played all right with me, because then when Chris Pratt is all like, I can feel this planet and I'm going to fight Ego, and then the chain by Fleetwood Mac kicks on. It's a really cool moment. I got chills. So it played for me just fine.
By the way, it was Archon, the historical character that Simon Williams played.
Oh, yes, everyone's favorite character, Archon.
Archon. Yeah, I wanted to look it up because I knew there would be a comment to be like, hey, good plot, you stupid idiot. It was Archon.
I know that name, but I don't know why.
It sounds like a gas station.
It does sound like a gas station. It's so this movie takes place 6 months or so after the original, right? A few months afterwards, which makes it the first time that we've had a movie that's not in chronological order after the last thing we saw. I think Incredible Hulk is kind of during one, but other than that,
and Thor and Incredible Hulk are both during Iron Man 2.
Oh yeah, okay, but like we've never gone backwards.
We might have a little bit of that with Thor Ragnarok and Doctor Strange, because Doctor Strange is really weird with its...
And we don't know where exactly that happened at all. Maybe by Ragnarok we will know when that happened.
Yeah.
But I just mentioned that to say it's... I guess it was just in that one town, but it's really difficult to tell just how far Ego's... like plant thing went in taking over, like how much it covered, because you have a couple planets where it looks like it gets a lot of it.
Yeah, on Earth it just looks like it takes a couple buildings.
Yeah, but then we go back to it again, and like, because remember, it stops and then it starts to come again, and it's odd that no one's talking about that. I feel like that would have come up
That's
someplace.
true. It happened like 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's happening on the B-roll footage of Power Rangers. I don't think anyone cared. The thing is with that's one of my problems with the movie, though, is when it does go for that big, we have to save the entire universe, because I loved how small this movie felt, and then when it did do that, I didn't feel it, and I kind of like there's a bit of a self-awareness where Rocket's like, oh, we're going to save the galaxy again, and then Star-Lord goes, I guess. But I think that was a nice little self-aware nudge, but it does feel like it's asking too much of us, since I think the only characters in this movie are the Guardians, Yondu with the Ravagers, and then we have Sovereign, and then Ego the Living Planet, and some...
Connor has frozen.
Just like Yondu. Oh, he's still alive.
Oh, yeah, okay. Did I freeze out on everybody?
Yeah, we lost you for a second. But I'm never sure if it's me or you, so.
Yeah, you went Yondu on us.
Oh, no.
So I'm sorry, Connor, we missed some of that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it feels so close quarter because it is so connected. All the characters are so tightly knit, and it feels so small and out there that it felt like it was asking too much of me as an audience member to buy that they're saving people we've never even seen them interact with.
Well, I didn't have that problem with it just because of what Ego is. We know early enough, I think. I mean, I'm still not sure about how we got there, and I want to talk about that. But we know early enough, I think, that Ego's whole plan is to become everything. That the stakes are that high already. I'm just saying. It sounds like you're saying it kind of comes out of nowhere, so we have to readjust and go, oh wait, the scope is that big.
I don't know if we actually need to see any of that. Like,
I wonder.
I did wonder if
just
our characters and just be told this is what's happening. I don't need to cut away to all these planets and see stuff.
At the same time, it is nice that we literally seeded it. That it goes to the seed that we planted in the flashback at the beginning. And we are told that he's gone to all these different planets and planted those, and so that's starting to happen. But maybe it would have been enough for him to just have monitors and see him on monitors or something.
Maybe even anti-monitors.
Yeah, or and if you put those together, they explode.
What is it with these superhero interplanetary MacGuffins being placed right next to restaurants?
Yeah, I was thinking Power Rangers real hard with that. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, but at least it wasn't it wasn't like the life source for all of life. Like, it was just a thing that he planted. But I don't know. That being, those are two different things. The idea that there is a crystal that is the reason that I am alive, that is on every planet in Power Rangers, is actually kind of, for Power Rangers, a thing I like and think is really funny. But anyway, with you, I don't know if we needed to see it. I want to talk a little bit about how stuff that we know about Ego by the end, just like how he explains all of that. Because I question when Star-Lord gets information a little bit, and when he chooses to reveal things, but also
and after that we should talk about Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer.
Yeah, I'm a little confused. Yeah, I was going there. I'm a little confused about his I'm not confused about his motivations. I know why he's doing what he's doing, but I feel like I need a little bit more to understand why his mind couldn't have been changed or why it wasn't changed. And then I also, as Eric is saying, don't totally understand the energy thing and why he needs Quill and all of that. So let's just get into all that, because the logical issues I have with this movie are pretty much all just that, and I love Ego as a villain, and I think he's I think on paper he's really interesting. I think the performance is fantastic.
Yeah.
But let's just start at the third act thing. So he's lying to Peter the whole time, and acting like he's altruistic and innocent, and then all of a sudden, he decides to tell him not just, yeah, I tried with some other kids and they had to die, but don't worry, they didn't feel anything, and so Yondu didn't break the Ravager code, as all that badly, and then
still traffic though.
Oh, that's true. He did traffic.
That's there. They do not traffic children.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I knew that. I just said that wrong. Yeah, it's not about the rules. It's just, Yondu was okay with it as long as they weren't dying or they weren't being hurt, and he's a little technicality with that. But anyway, he that, and then he also says in that moment that he killed his that he gave his mother the tumor, and simultaneously with that, as we do in a lot of movies, our other characters are starting to figure out what's going on, and these things have to happen simultaneously so that we're all on the same page and so we can get into the third act. Did you guys feel this way? I wondered kind of why now, and I kind of get his wanting to ease Star-Lord into these ideas and see if he can make him okay with it as he's buttered him up, but I felt like the timing was convenient, if nothing else, and it just seemed a little easy. I don't know.
Well,
it is convenient. Go ahead, Roscoe.
I think that he approaches Peter after Gamora's gone, because I think that maybe the idea there was like he's waiting for a moment where he kind of is like on rocky terms with the people in his life, and Drax is just like off asleep, so it's kind of, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But I think the idea was like Gamora leaves, that's when he walks in and he's like, hey son, I saw your lady leave earlier and stuff like that. That is fine. It's just what Gamora realizes off on her own that's kind of problematic, because also Mantis, I think, just tells Drax, because doesn't Drax have a line where he's like, she just told me all of that information? And so Gamora figures it out on her own, and that's the part that kind of is just like, that's a little contrived. She didn't even need to figure it out. Mantis could have just told Drax, and then Gamora comes back with Nebula, and then Drax tells her that information. She didn't need to also discover it separate from Drax and Peter.
Yeah.
Come up with a reason for her not to have told Drax already so that we can watch that unfold.
And I don't fully understand that reason. Because
and then Gamora walks in, and she doesn't want to tell Gamora.
I don't know why.
Yeah, I didn't fully get that.
I also don't know why Gamora's suspicious when she starts being suspicious. She's like, there's something wrong on this planet. Why? What is wrong on this planet?
I think
doesn't have evidence yet.
That's before. Her saying that she's suspicious comes after Mantis is like, oh, I wasn't going to say anything.
Well, but it could have been anything. She could have just been about to tell him like something really personal. Like there's no reason to believe that.
I'm not with you there.
Okay.
The look Mantis has is very specifically, there's something bad. I don't want to tell you what it is. It's like a things are awful. Nope, I didn't say anything. It wasn't like the no, we were making out, I don't want to tell you look. It was the no, you're all gonna die, but I don't want to tell you look. Like I think
maybe her facial features work differently than ours. Maybe that was the look she was giving. You don't know.
It's the movie and it tracks. So
yeah, there's some. It's that whole getting everything set up for the third act. It is movie-ish, and it isn't as it's all convenient.
You kind of see the writing behind it. It's not as story driven as I wish it was somehow.
Well, and I have a question about. Sorry,
go ahead, Connor.
Oh, at the same time, there is some explanations you can get. You can go back far enough to see where they're going. They're not great reasons, but they're at least there. I appreciate that. There's at least some intent behind the writing, but it is a little convenient. We got it. As you said, you can see the writing behind where everything is going.
Yeah, like we have decided what it's gonna be, and now we got to make that work. And they just didn't quite sufficiently make it work for me, so that I couldn't see the seams. Yeah.
All right. So I have a question about Ego, because when he first starts explaining what's going on, or when he's explaining to Peter, Peter very specifically cuts him off before he would explain what he explains to him later. Like very specifically, he goes, I went out to other planets, and then Peter's like, yeah, but what about my mom? And then to his mom. Well, would he have explained it there?
Is that the scene where they play ball together, or?
And if you remember, the scene just cuts to another scene right after that. He's like, but what about it's not to his mind, it's just to another scene.
I thought he rearranged the thing and did which was a really cool effect.
Yeah, but no, that was already happening. If memory serves, he's like, why did you leave my mom? Big pause, cut to another subplot, go back to it later.
No, because I thought it was, when does this get to my mom? Because he's explaining like this is I became sentient, and then I started pulling things to me, and then
No, you're right.
out.
But what I'm saying is, he doesn't explain right away why he left his mother, because that's where he'd get into big trouble.
But would he have explained if Peter hadn't cut him off? Would he have explained, "First all become me"?
Yeah, probably. But what I'm saying is that part's not even a cutoff. It's he's not sure what he's going to say, and then we cut away from it. And so I don't know what their conversation is right after that part.
Which scene is that?
But
is that the scene where they're playing ball, or is that the scene where
That's the scene where he's doing the thing with the...
No, we're talking earlier than that, before he even knows he's a god.
Yeah.
Okay. That's because
well, he's explaining that he's a god, but I don't think Peter knows he's a god.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Before Peter knows that he's half god, yeah.
Well, that's all happening when Gamora and Drax and everyone's around him, and he doesn't want them to know that he kind of wants to get them out of the picture.
No, they're isolated at that point. Most of their conversations, there's nobody else in the room.
Okay, maybe I need to go back and rewatch that, because I from when I watched it last, I thought I was trying to pay more attention to that, and there seemed to be more people. When people were around, he was not talking about certain things. And I also would like to attribute it to there's been a trial and error element to Ego's plan. There's like so many skeletons underneath the crust of the earth that he at least has kind of a system down that he's been working out. I mean, that's kind of where my mind went.
Well, and that leads to my question about what exactly he's capable of doing, because he's able to create quite a bit on his own, and there are limitations to his powers, but I don't fully understand that either. Why does he have to have the skeletons there except to have evidence that he's doing horrible things? Shouldn't he be powerful enough to get rid of that?
Well, yeah.
To disintegrate them or something?
I don't know why anyone would ever go down where the skeletons were located, though. I mean, it's not like
that's all very convenient. Yeah, it's very convenient.
And why would he put them on one plate?
Because A, it's creepy, and B, this movie weirdly calls back to Man of Steel in a lot of places.
Yeah, no, that's how you do the weird, like it's a Small World thing from Man of Steel.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Did you guys know? Speaking of that, this is jumping around. Speaking of that, did you guys agree with this? I don't know if this is intentional, but I immediately thought that the Sovereign was a parody of Man of Steel Kryptonians.
I didn't think that, but that's funny.
I immediately thought that because like they're sterile and they're genetically engineered and they're like they have like no personality except for when they suddenly break into, hey, you suck, and amusing things like that.
I didn't think of that, but you thought more about Man of Steel than anyone else on the planet, so
that's true. It felt real Man of Steel to me, and I thought that was really funny. But anyway. Okay,
that's a nice segue into something that I really liked about this film. The set design and costume design are magnificent in this movie.
It's gorgeous, absolutely.
I think, and the way Gunn captures it with his camera is great. I think me and Roscoe talked about this in a Real Talk Weekly episode. This is like the first film shot on like a certain 8K camera.
I think it's the Red Epic Dragon 8K. This is like the camera that this movie was shot on is probably what you're going to see all the rest of the Marvel movies shot on from now on.
Yeah. So, and I think the way he uses his frame in this film is great. I think he has grown significantly as a director. I still see him more as a writer than a director, but he's become, I think, a much stronger director in the way he handles these like more closed off scenes and the way he captures the majesty of the universe and the galaxy. And I think he's really grown, and I like the way this film looks. It is a very professional, great movie. And I think, honestly, I think this actually dethrones Iron Man 3 as the most auteurist Marvel Cinematic Universe film. This does not feel, I was kind of surprised Marvel let their name be attached to this, because this feels like a James Gunn film, like so strongly, even more than the first one.
Film does too, though.
Yeah, it does, but there's still a lot of that Marvel identity. A lot of that Marvel identity I found to kind of be stripped away. I found a lot of this film, especially like towards the end of the second act, to really creep me out and get under my skin. And I don't like, and I never really felt that in any other Marvel film. And since James Gunn goes back to Troma and making Slither, and he has that kind of midnight movie, B-movie sensibilities. He kind of brought some of that to the table here, and I really dug it, and it felt so much more unique than that first film did too. So there's still a lot of his comedy sensibilities, which were really driving in that first film, and they're still here, but a lot more of the other parts of his filmmaking identity are also present.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought that first movie looked pretty different from the other ones and had its own distinct look. But I also think you're right that he's really refined that look.
It's consistent. It's consistent, but it's also building on it.
The Ego Planet blew me away. Like every time Kirk and crew in the original series in Star Trek go to a planet and call it paradise, they're actually seeing this planet, but they just can't build it. That's what I was immediately like. Oh, that's what paradise is supposed to look like. Okay.
Were you a little disappointed that we never saw the face of Ego actually emote? Like, even though
I thought it was cool that that it was even there on the planet. That is, and we'll get back to the technical issues with Ego's powers. But we will evoke Rise of the Server here in a minute. But that is not a Rise of the Server problem.
No.
It actually is a living planet. We get to see the face, but what we got with his taking a human form, and especially the performance he was playing him, was immediately so much more fun and more interesting than if he had just been a talking planet.
Yeah.
This is one of those like deviations from comics that's way more interesting.
Yeah.
For the sake of the story we're telling.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not gonna say I know anything about Ego the Living Planet, but it's certainly.
And I can see that there was probably no ideal scene in the movie where he could like actually have the chance to talk as a planet, but that would have been nice.
He critically said no as he exploded.
Maybe, but the problem is that's not exactly what we're given, right? Like he is the planet. He has a literal giant brain that is the source of his power.
I loved that. It's so goofy. I loved it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's preposterous. I also love that somehow or rather he knows exactly what human life would look like, even though he's never seen one. And then he goes out and he finds people. And he's like, "Oh, got it right, nailed it."
Except he doesn't. He goes to an alien world where they don't look like a human being. When the first
they've got different skin.
I think he goes to the one where it's all pink people.
Yeah, but
he looks exactly like us except pink.
But he nails anatomy immediately. No, it's weird that so it's weird that it looks like from what he's showing Peter that he immediately makes himself a human guy
like
and wearing 80s clothing, but
that might just be for the sake.
That's probably Peter. Just for the sake of especially because he shows it to Peter as if he's wearing that on every planet he goes to, and that's preposterous, even beyond this movie. It's too preposterous. So that's not what's going on. It is
preposterous, but
that was also real Man of Steel, by the way.
Yeah,
the way he's displaying all of that.
That's what I was referring to when I said that's how you do that. It's a small world thing from Man of Steel and make it less confusing. But that part where it's him just as this weird mannequin version of him, and the orb spins around, he's like getting it on with a bunch of other aliens, and it spins around, and it's even more, and then it's even more. That really got under my skin and creeped me out. Maybe it's because it's just a normal human with like a bunch of other aliens, but that stuck with me, and I don't know why it creeped me out as much as it did.
James T. Kirk would do that all the time.
Maybe I just need to watch more Star Trek. Maybe that's my problem.
And apparently Star-Lord mentioned in the first movie how he would do stuff like that. So I guess it's
true. That is true.
I have a
I
have a minor comic booky complaint that isn't exactly a problem with the film, but it might be, especially connecting to the first film, which is that we are told that Ego is a Celestial.
Yeah.
And Celestials are a very specific thing with very specific traits, and we see one in the first film. The Nowhere is in the head of a Celestial. He doesn't look like one of them. And Celestials, like, by nature, do not talk to anyone below them. Like, he shouldn't be talking to anybody if he's a Celestial. That's very comic booky, but I think it's weird that
if they're doing it like comics, as far as just their version of Celestials, I just need to know why that was a giant head and he doesn't
And he's just
have
a
that
big brain.
And so maybe they could just look however they want to look.
But also, why is he so lonely? Like, there are other Celestials. Why is there no conversation about the other Celestials?
Yeah, and they treat it like he's the only. Not only that he's the only one of his kind, but that he is like he thinks that. So like he knows what Celestials are because he calls himself that. But then he acts like he's the only one of his kind, and he creates Peter Quill and is trying to make children so that he's not alone.
How was
and
there
so
no
that he
Tigger
can
reference in this
take over.
movie? The wonderful thing about Ego is that I'm the only one. How's that not here?
Well, I mean, if that had been there, you would have said, "Okay, that's too many Disney references."
No, I would have loved it.
We can't keep doing that.
Well, okay, so maybe he's the last Celestial. Okay, he also does say that he's a like a lower G god, like little G god. Maybe he's
Which
like.
I love.
Yeah, I think that's really
That's
cool.
a Marvel thing.
Yeah, but I'm sure that would be true of all the Celestials. And I'm sure it's not like I'm lower on the totem pole of Celestials.
And when they say it in the first movie, where they say this is the head of a Celestial, there's no. Like, everyone knows what that means immediately.
Yeah.
Like, everyone knows what Celestials
guess.
are.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right, yeah.
Here's the thing about that, though. It's like one. Well, you know, you're right because it's what. Okay, for a second, I thought it was one of the things that was written on screen. No, you're right. That's in a line of dialogue.
Yeah, it's in a line of dialogue.
People know what that is. Yeah, yeah.
So I'm confused. It almost seems like we did that in the first movie, and then we kind of in this movie we're
abandoning. It's the same thing as
like
Adam Warlock. Like,
yeah, which is. It's fine in this movie. I'm not really complaining that's different from the comics. I'm not complaining it's different, but I got the comic book version of the first one, and these aren't lining up. So I'm confused.
Yeah, it makes you think the Living Tribunal is going to be a totally different thing. Although not that we had any sense of what that was.
He's so powerful he can connect pieces of wood together.
Don't the Celestials play a role in the Infinity Gauntlet storyline?
They do. They show up with the other powerful beings, like the Living Tribunal, to say, well, technically Thanos hasn't broken any galactic laws, but we'll try and fight him. And then the next time you see them, they're all dead and just laying across the stars.
Are they kind of like an analog for the Guardians of the Universe in Green Lantern?
No, they're just like super powerful beings that aren't really bothered with humans.
Oh, okay. So let's get into
made people.
Let's get into the power question.
I think they might have made humans.
I was confused about this first time around. I wasn't sure if I had seen scenes the way I thought I did. Saw it a second time around. Saw it a second time and was still confused. So somebody explain this to me. I will be as brief as I can in setting this up. So you are a Celestial. You're a lowercase g god. And you have decided that reality is not interesting enough to you. And you have to make it all yourself because you're lonely and nothing's doing it for you. Even though you fell in love with a girl, and if you kept going back to that planet, you would stay there and you wouldn't go ahead and get this whole thing done. So those two things are kind of at odds.
Well, no,
so that's
she dies.
the first thing. Let's just start there. I'm confused about that whole thing.
She's temporary.
Yeah, no, I get that. And then like that's been my internal argument is, okay, she's temporary, but then why not live your life out with, or live her life out with her and then go create the, like, where's the ticking time bomb?
And
or why is he in a hurry? Like, why does he need to give her a brain aneurysm? And then, like, I just feel like all that starts to break apart.
Well, and shouldn't her existence, like, make him question his ideals? If there is one person that is interesting and connects with me, surely there are other people that are interesting.
And maybe they're worth keeping around in some way. I start to get a little bit confused about, I get his initial motivation, but I feel like it was already trumped for him. Like, you could easily have told another more happy story about this guy not as a villain, where he thought about taking over the whole universe and decided, and had like the Dr. Manhattan moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if she's temporary, and so that's why he can't be with her, is because she's going to be gone in the blink of an eye, because he's cosmic and has existed for millions of years. What's 80 years? Why not be with her for, you know?
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
If it's so insignificant.
And okay. Then I guess my question is this: his actual intentions to whether he loved her or not are a little muddied. You can read one side where he
As
does
much as
love
his
her,
story
and
changes,
read
that's
one-
consistent, though.
Yeah, it is. Because he is still saying that after all the lies are gone.
And even
but
when
he
mentions
knows.
the brain aneurysm.
Yeah, he's trying to explain that as you know, you don't understand. It was necessary. It had to happen. I know it sounds bad, but and then that's when he gets shot up. He's completely.
But that's the thing. That's when he still thinks he has Peter. Once Peter's like, nope, I'm gonna kill you. He doesn't ever bring up his mom or his, this love that he's had. He never brings her up ever again for the rest of the movie. So I still think he's.
But he also doesn't.
They're not having those conversations anymore.
Well,
either,
but he also doesn't go. You know what? I didn't really love your mom. I was just trying. Like even in their fights, he never says anything bad about her.
Yeah,
that's true. So there's one side of this where you can read it as a facade, and one side where you can read it as legit. So I kind of like that. I kind of choose to decide that it's a facade because it makes more sense. But I guess it
does make more sense if it's a lie, but
yeah,
I don't think the film's telling you that.
That's the thing, though. Everything else is a lie, so you can read that. I don't. It's
not much of what he says. There is more than a grain of truth to, though, and that part is weird because early on, he says the reason he didn't go back to Earth was because he couldn't stand to be in the place where she was, and she's gone. He couldn't be there without her, and I don't think whenever
he doesn't go back to Earth, he sends the Ravagers to get Peter.
Right, and that's a thing he really needs. So that's the only. Thank you for bringing that up, because that's the only real concrete reason we have for why he didn't go get Peter himself. And Peter is essential for his plan, and he seemed to be in a hurry, like I said, to get that going. So why not go there himself if that's all a facade? Furthermore,
and he goes also.
How was it that hard to find Yondu? I don't get that either. How is it that hard for this guy to find Yondu?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, and he goes also not so much a liar as he is not giving you all the details.
Yeah.
Most of what he says isn't a lie. It's not true.
It's lie by
It's just not the whole story.
Yeah.
I think he says is accurate, right?
I think
he never lies. He just doesn't tell you it.
Which is why, I think it's true when he says that he has to go back to Earth or back to the planet. He can't.
Because he says he went there 3 times.
Yeah,
so that would suggest he had to leave and then come back.
Well, and I want to say there's a line, and I missed it the second time, but first time around, guys, tell me if I'm wrong about this. In the comments too, and I'm sorry we haven't responded. I was trying to create a way to respond to you guys more often, but we got off on our own tangents. Doesn't he have a line where he says that he can't survive without going back to the planet every so often?
Yeah,
I thought that there was a thing about that.
He does.
Okay, so if that is true, and I don't know why he would lie about that. If that is true, then I also don't get why Peter doesn't ask. Doesn't wonder, okay, if I kill him, would that kill me? You would be wondering about that because you're part him,
well, he
and
has to
the
go back
light
because
is
he's
the
a
reason.
construct.
He's willing to die
He's a
at the end.
construct. Right? No, and I get that. But if you're tied to the energy of the planet, I would think that it would cross your mind. It's okay that it doesn't. I would think that it would cross your mind that maybe that would kill you. Maybe you couldn't exist without it. Your chemical makeup is tied to that.
Yeah, but he's willing to sacrifice himself in order just to kill Ego. He's
true.
He's telling Rocket to get everyone out of here. I'm just going to do
That's
it.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, that's true. Okay, so that's the thing I wondered, and I just wanted to know.
Okay, but that leads us into the big question with this movie, the big kind of problem.
How can you be a battery and be powered by something at the same time?
So we're told...
Wow, I didn't even think of that.
that he's another Celestial because he can't do it by himself. But we're told that all of Peter's power comes from him. How does that give you any more power? And he goes, well, then you'll just be a battery. But his power comes from him. Yeah. It's a loop.
Yeah.
Mitochondria.
I could see.
Look it up.
I could see how he could. Yeah, so he needed, and that's where I was going earlier. So he's impregnating women. Yeah, he's impregnating women all over the galaxy in order to get to get a child that is DNA compatible to create things from his power source in order to take over the whole universe. That doesn't make sense to me, and it ends up looking like the end of Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer, where a part of the power cosmic can destroy the power cosmic. I don't understand that. Somebody needs to explain that to me. Does not completely wreck the movie because the character arcs work. Again, a little heavy-handed, some of it, but the character arcs work. Their relationship is interesting, and I love him as great. And I love Ego as the ultimate abusive father. I love the Star-Lord's character arc is one of the best in all the Marvel films, I think, where he discovers like I love the grain of truth, and he doesn't even realize why it's true that we have in Ego's thing with Brandy, which is thematically better than any of the songs in the first movie in how they connect to the story. I don't think the soundtrack is as good. I don't know if that's possible. And there were a few really cool small ones in the first movie and how they related to the story and the character stuff. But this is really, really good. The sailor thing, you'd make a great wife, but I'm loyal to my thirst for adventure and ultimately my ego. And I really like that. By the end, we discover that was true for Star-Lord, but not in so much of a selfish way. He already has everything he needs in space, and and his first love is space. But it's because of all the things that he's found there. It's because he really did have a good father figure to some degree with Yondu, and it's because he has found potential love with Gamora, which that whole thing isn't working totally for me. I don't think there's a lot of chemistry there, but whatever. And he has found a family. And there was a lot of Malcolm Reynolds to him in this movie.
Well, there's Malcolm Reynolds to him in the first movie too.
But a lot more. Like that first scene, besides how crazy cosmic it was, could have been a Firefly scene.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But
I also like.
But anyway,
how his sense of innocence and being a child is personified in the Walkman, and then when he gets the enlightenment and he gets this experience, it's shattered. I think that's really neat.
Yeah, that's right. And then he's rewarded with a better one.
I have a slight complaint with Star-Lord.
With the Zune.
Well, not with Star-Lord. People talking about Star-Lord.
Oh, and then after that, can I posit my theory about how we're going to get Volume 3?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's mostly Gamora, but I think it might come up once or twice outside of her. But they keep talking about Peter Quill as a character with ego, and she's like, well, his ego is already big. Peter Quill is not a character with ego. He's a guy who's not cool, trying to be cool, and thinks he's cool. But he's not someone that is... He's all charisma. Like, the reason he gets with women is because he's confident in himself because he thinks he's cool even though no one else does.
And he also doesn't have anything to lose.
That's not the same thing as ego, and I thought that was weird that
I'll be interested
a couple of times that he has ego.
I'll be interested to see if you feel the same way on a second viewing, because I was looking for that this time and didn't find it.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to just sit here and contradict you, but I know
Gamora says it at least once.
I didn't see that as much. I don't know if she has a line directly about his being like overly full of himself or anything.
I think it's when they first get to the planet. She's when we find out he's half god, before he even knows he has powers, and he's like, "I'm half god," and she's like, "Well, your ego was already big as it was," but that just felt weird to me. I'm like, "But that's not who you are. You're not Tony Stark. You're kind of a lame guy that has this idea of what cool is, and no one else agrees with you, and so you live up to that. That's not ego. That's something else." It's just confidence, and the confidence is not inherently egotistical.
Yeah, I mean, there is some kind of fun talk with even other characters about humility versus conceitedness. I like that bit with Drax where he talks about how humble he is. That was kind of funny. But yeah, I don't remember that line. But I'm not saying
it stuck out to me.
Like, yeah, okay.
But
all right.
I only saw it once. It might not even have stuck out to me a second time, but
sorry guys, we don't mean to leave you out. Does anybody agree or disagree with that you want to talk about that?
I'm not sure if I have a dog in that fight.
Yeah, I don't really remember the line. I've only seen the movie once, and it was just a few hours ago, so I don't really have anything to say about that.
Midway through the movie, because I have been preoccupied by a ridiculous thing. His mother only gave him 2 tapes, so how could the third Guardians movie be called Volume 3? And I have been fixated on this.
Well, yeah, he'd have to make his own his own thing and call it Volume 3.
Exactly. And so
Give me a playlist.
That's what he's gonna do in the Infinity War. He's gonna get connections with Tony Stark.
Oh, I bet when he comes to Earth, he leaves with like a hard drive of music. But in the before this movie came out, I was thinking, okay, I don't know how he first of all gets more music, but however he does that, he's got to make a mixtape for Gamora, for his girlfriend, right? And I'm watching this movie, and halfway through, I'm like, okay, he's a god. So he has a built-in way to do that now. You can just manifest a tape, boom, there you go. And then he gets that taken away from him, and I'm like, oh, now I'm back to square one. I don't know how he's gonna make the tape. And then he gets the Zune, and I'm like, there we go. There you go. All he's got to do now is find find a way to make CDs, or we know that they can put music on their ships, and they call it cloning, which is cool. Yeah. I like that they had their own alien word for that. Do you have a clone of his music? I thought that was cool. Now, that scene where Rocket says that, I thought that was one of those kind of easy contrived things where like we have to have incidental music somehow. There was really no reason for music then, but whatever.
But the scene was cool. You gotta love Yondu and Rocket bonding over murdering people. It's great.
It was great.
I can't.
No, there was a point where he almost said "Blam murder you," but didn't. And I thought that was interesting.
I kept waiting for it.
That's like all his dialogue in the Bendis comics is "Blam murdered you."
Although, let me ask you this: would you have been okay with it? Because I'm glad he doesn't say that.
Yeah, me too.
I kind of like that this Rocket doesn't do that.
Did it.
But I think it would be funny because that does seem like a thing that you might think of in the moment and never say it again.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that? Where you're like, "Blam, murdered you." Like if you delivered it right, I could see it. The one place to have put it would have been when he thought he was killing real people and they were drones. That would have been the place to put it, right? Because he was like, "I love murdering things," and then Gamora's like, "Yeah, those aren't man." So
that's exactly where I thought
that's where he should have said it.
Murdered you.
That would have been the place
when
to
he
put
said,
it. Though.
"I love murdering things," it should have then been "Blam murdered you."
That would have been great. That would have been great.
Other thing in that scene that I thought was like, I think that I like the tune. I like that they're killing people to the tune, and they're beaming, smiling, like, yeah, we're killing them. But there's a part where he whistles the arrow and it catches fire, and then it like starts blowing up the ship, and then there's no real sense of danger or urgency. It's just, oh, you could blow up the ship, and the incidental music kind of got me laid back, and there wasn't this sense of like, boom, this thing they're in danger. And
I think that Star Trek thing. I didn't think about this. Do we have to blow up the ship in the second movie, or is the third movie that?
No, because it's been the third movie with the 2 Star Trek franchises.
Okay.
And the first movie, if you're Next Generation, but yeah,
well, it's the second movie in a trilogy starting with Wrath of Khan.
He makes a terrific point there.
Sure,
but
it's also the second movie in a trilogy with Abrams. If you ignore the bad one.
That's really good, but it's still a consummate sequel to that first one. We're not ignoring the first one, so yeah. Anyway, that dope channel.
So yes, it's a Star Trek reference.
That dope channel mentions in the comments going back to the thing you were talking about earlier with Peter Quill and the ego thing that we were arguing about. He's right. He says Gamora said insufferable, not ego. And that's what he's right about that.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's a different thing.
Okay, sure.
Do you guys are you guys with me that I'm not as invested in that relationship as I want to be, and it feels like
yeah, and it feels very tacked on.
And kind of obligatory to me. Yeah,
it doesn't feel like
it's uninspired.
I don't feel like they have chemistry, which I can't imagine. I feel like I would have chemistry with Chris Pratt, but I don't get anything from her with him, and I don't really get anything special from him with her other than how he is with all the girls he talks to. I don't feel it between them, other than the movie's telling me I should.
The only thing with me is, well, they're kind of the father and mother characters, at least by the end, so obligatorily they kind of need to get together. But yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, good plan.
I'm more invested in the relationship between Drax and Mantis. Like I think that one was like more natural.
We'll talk about that in a second. We need to get into Drax because I have real conflicting emotions about Drax now.
Well, can we stay on Gamora for a moment?
No, absolutely. That's where I wanted to say, actually. Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't love Gamora. I don't dislike Gamora, but I don't really like her in the first one. I don't really like her in this one. Nothing about her. I'm just not invested in this character. Mm-hmm. I really need the third movie, or I really want the third movie to be Gamora's movie. I need something to, and I think that he thinks that he did that with this because there's so much more with her and Nebula, but I just don't care. So maybe I did get that in this movie, but it didn't resonate with me.
And I felt like there was a massive missed opportunity with that relationship.
Yeah. We worked out a better ending.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but it was better.
I remember things about it. Sorry, go ahead, good plot.
Regarding the sisters, like, you said there'd be, like, a better ending? Because I thought that was like where Gamora was the best, was when she was involved with that subplot instead of the romantic subplot.
I was bored by it.
She was better there, you're right. And I like Zoe Saldaña's performance. I don't usually like her. She's won me over on the character a little bit, but I still don't. I like on her performance of the character. But I still feel like that's the character that the people working on the movie are least interested in.
I agree. I remember our better ending, which is that her speech to Nebula should have been, I was taking care of myself. Every time we fought, I had to worry that I was going to die, and I didn't want that to happen to me. But every time I hoped that you would fight harder and you would win. I wasn't going to let you win, but I always wanted. I
always hoped you would get. Yeah. I was, because what she says is. And I looked for this the second time. Was like, yeah, that I don't think that worked. It doesn't play. She says, I never noticed what was happening to you.
I don't buy that.
Like obviously she
has a robot on.
She acted like she just didn't care. And like she's got too much humanity for me to buy that she didn't care. Like she's on a path to redemption. Maybe you could flesh it out later where she got to be too much like Thanos, almost to a place where like she liked Thanos or something. You could do that, but I need that, but before I would buy that. One more thing with Gamora, real quick. One of the things that hurt that relationship on a second viewing for me was that Drax is right, that they're not compatible.
Yeah,
like he makes me believe that, not just with his speech at the beginning. There are dancers and there are not dancers.
But she danced.
But no, I get that. But the real thing is, I could see them together before I could see her with Star-Lord as the problem.
Drax and Gamora.
Yeah. When Drax has that speech, I'm not saying that that's where they should go necessarily, but when Drax has that speech toward the end, and it's funny about how, or I forget what it is, maybe it's middle of the movie, about how his wife was so stolid and stoic, and so not, or is it that same speech? And so not into dancing, that
that was stirring in the loins.
That that she never even tapped her foot. I was like, why aren't you attracted to her?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like I don't know why. So I got distracted by that. I don't know why Drax doesn't want to get with Gamora.
Yeah, I have this thing where, like instead of viewing them as like with like a mother and a dad, I have a thing where I view them as like a band. Like they're like a band, like they play music together. They're a band, and I think that what they could do that would get me to absolutely love the Peter Quill Gamora relationship in the third movie is have them just break up, because I kind of see it as like there are two people in the band and they just kind of hook up because they're both attractive people in the band. Love for like the third movie to be like a story that you could write like a love ballad, or like the song like Every Rose Has Its Thorn, the Bret Michaels song. Movie that should have like that kind of emotion should be in the Peter Quill Gamora relationship, where like they realize they're not compatible and that they do break up. It fits with the band motif a little bit.
Yeah, but this movie is all about family, and by the end of it, Groot is a teenage kid, and Star-Lord is straight up his dad. Like,
that's true to some extent. I'm just saying, like, if you look at the posters for the movie, it's an album cover.
I forgot about that. That's true. There's that too. Well, there are, of course, families that become,
like the Partridges,
like the Partridge family. Yeah,
that's what they're like. They're like the Partridge family.
They're just like that.
Or the Carpenters.
That's like a bus.
I think the Carpenters.
The Milano was like a bus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you do view it through that lens, Rocket to me is like the band manager.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great.
Well, he's the drummer.
Ponderer.
Groot's the drummer or the bass player.
I want to respond. No,
Groot's the bass player.
That indisputable. Groot is the drummer. Old Groot is the drummer.
Okay, yeah, okay. Old Groot has to be the bass player. I live with the bass player. Groot is the bass player.
So is Mantis the Yoko Ono that breaks them apart?
Yes!
She's a groupie.
Absolutely, she is.
She could be a groupie.
She writes a totally like atonal, impossible song to listen to called "I Feel Feelings," and every time you hear it, your brain explodes. Like, I feel, and you just want to punch yourself in the face. I thought her performance is great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know what you do with that character in another movie. And the thing that I don't think they'll do, the only thing I can figure out, the only thing I can think of that you would do with that character is she's real naive and innocent, and then you show her how terrifying the world is. But I don't think this is the kind of movie that will do that.
They should team her up with Nebula, I think. That'd be an interesting pair to maybe explore.
Which we didn't talk about Nebula. While I don't care about that character, I think Karen Gillan is unrecognizable in the best way possible.
Yeah.
I don't see her in that performance at all.
The other and thanks for bringing that up, because I forgot about this. The other big missed opportunity for me with Nebula is how are we not comparing her to Rocket Raccoon?
Yeah.
Maybe it'll happen in a third movie.
Yeah, maybe so. That's another thing to speculating to ask about, I guess, is if you guys are like how you guys feel, or if you're kind of trepidatious about adding members to the team, because by the end we kind of have 2 or 3, and I think they're going to have difficulty making us like them as part of that dynamic. Especially the Ravager guy, if they keep him.
I hope they don't.
I
like, he's fine, but I don't want him as part of the.
I think he'll start his. I think Sean Gunn is going to start his own Ravager Corps. I think that's what they're going to go with that, and I think that'd be the right way to take that.
Or maybe he crash lands on Earth and he ends up in that town in Gilmore Girls.
Or the town that almost got killed by Ego.
Stars Hollow. Stars Hollow.
He just goes down there.
Even Star. It's a star. Stars Hollow. See, because he's in space. Like, there's a weird guy in that show too. Sorry.
But I want him to run the Dairy Queen.
That'd be funny.
I want him to go to Ego's hometown and run the Dairy Queen. Anyway,
I mean that character is based off of an Ant-Man villain, so maybe he'll just show up in Ant-Man and he'll be there from now on.
Is he?
Well, yeah. No, it's also interesting is that when in the mid-credit scene with Sylvester Stallone.
How do you know this stuff?
Because
how do you know that?
Wikipedia.
Oh, okay.
Well, there's when Sylvester Stallone gets his original Guardians crew together, he says, "Let's steal some stuff." I'm like, that's an Ant-Man line. Do you think they're gonna do an Ant-Man Guardians thing together then?
I think
Ant-Man going up in space is the best idea I've heard today.
That's a good idea.
That would be wonderful. Ant-Man should be the Marvel Comics Venom from a couple years ago of this world, where he's just stuck in space for 2 movies. Like, I would be so okay with that. Yeah, that would be just wonderful. There's some folks in the comments that don't like my idea about Gamora with Drax. I'm not saying Gamora and Drax should get together. I was just like, I feel like they almost make more sense. But I hope they win me over on it, because I think they can.
Yeah. I've never believed that Zoe Saldana had chemistry with anyone. I don't think ever, so maybe not.
Well, okay.
She has a hard time because she's having to play such a no nonsense kind of character. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I buy them enough as platonic friends.
Yeah. And that's the thing.
They're co-captains, right? Like they very much run that ship together.
And that's where I thought they were going. in this movie where she keeps saying there is no unspoken thing. I thought Peter was going to get to the point at the end of this movie where he realizes, oh, there is no unspoken thing.
Yeah. That almost would have been more believable.
But then
to
it
me.
plays more. It goes the more. Yeah, it goes the more standard movie route.
Well, yeah, I still think it's possible. I still think it's possible to just have in the third movie, if they wanted to, they could just go to the direction of they're just not compatible. I mean, like ultimately, they did have something, but at the end, they don't have to be. That's what I'm saying. Is like they could do she's like a heartbreaker, and like he gets really like, and they just split, and then maybe there's some other romance, or maybe there's nothing, and
then some of them
that can still,
and then like Rocket goes with Peter, but like Groot goes with Gamora, and it's real sad, and there's like a big thing, like a big rift.
Yeah, you know, it's too bad that the MCU doesn't have the rights to Kitty Pryde.
That's because Bendis hooked up Star-Lord and Kitty Pryde.
No, thanks.
Because Bendis hooks Kitty Pryde up with everyone.
Yeah. Real quick, we're gonna get into a couple of things we haven't talked about. Mainly Drax. We got to get into that. And we're coming up on 2 hours, and as we often have with the Spoilercast, there's still lots of things to cover. In the comments right now, since we have not answered nearly enough comments, go ahead and start writing if you want to. Some of your least favorite things about this movie, and we'll see if any criticisms come up that we haven't talked about. And anybody that really wanted your best thing read, but we didn't have a whole lot of those, but you can go ahead and put those in there too now. And if you guys in the comments would do me the favor of, for at least the next 5 minutes or so, writing nothing else if you can, but best things and worst things, so that I've got a good block of those, and we can just rapid fire a few of those for you guys. Let's go ahead and get into Drax. Drax was one of, if not my favorite things about this movie first time around. And Eric and I argued about that and how we felt about it. Eric thinks he's a totally different character. I bought into it, and he was exactly what I thought he would be based on the trailer. On a second viewing, I still love him. I still think he's hilarious. I don't think he's a cartoon the way you think he is. But I will concede to you on one point. You and I had a conversation yesterday that didn't make it into how we felt about where you suggested that he seemed dumber than he does in the first movie, where in the first movie it's just he doesn't understand sarcasm and everything is literal, but he seems to be able to still see things with his own eyes and be accurate about them. There are 3 or 4 places where he seems too stupid.
And I think that's why he seems so off. Like, it's not just that he's happy, it's that he is now the lovable buffoon, as opposed to what he was in the first.
What do you guys think?
I don't. He tries to challenge Ronan by himself and brings like a whole fleet of ships.
But he's drunk.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say, because if that's our starting point, you can. It's kind of hard to go
you're talking too much. Stop.
I don't know. I don't know what you mean by too stupid. Like, I don't know the examples in the movie that you're referring to.
He can't tell the difference between Peter and Yanyandu.
He says you look just like him.
I understand.
Maybe he's colorblind, okay? He's not stupid.
That could be true.
Yeah, how do we not know that that's how his race is? They're just colorblind.
Because he doesn't have a problem telling Rocket from Gamora. Or Gamora from
and that's not the only thing. I wish I'd written
this tall and the other is this tall.
There was one toward the end where I was especially like no, I don't know that he's quite that. And he doesn't have to be a super smart person. I'm okay with he thinks the skin is thinner on the inside.
Absolutely.
I think that's great.
Absolutely.
That's totally works. I also was okay with right after that the bit where Peter says a technical sounding word to him and he says it back to him wrong.
Yeah.
But later on, he remembers that word and argues with him about it, and that was weird. And I don't even know if that's that he's too stupid. I just can't believe he remembered that. That was weird. No, I wish I could. If anybody in the comments knows what I'm talking about, toward the very, very end, there's a thing he says where I'm like, yeah, I know what it is. It's and I noticed it because I had in my head you going, no, I think he's kind of too dumb. And again, it's only in a couple places. Like understand, I still like Drax way better than Eric does, but there's just that one thing I think he's right about.
I just think he's a completely different character.
Yeah, and I still think it tracks better than Eric does. But anyway, but he says no, it's not toward. I'm sorry, it's not toward the end. It's after we see Ego the first time, and Rocket has that funny line where he's like, he's this small, but if he got closer, he's probably a lot bigger. When the ship lands, Drax says, "I bet it's the 1-inch man." I don't know. Is he that dumb?
Yeah, no, I don't think he still believes he's actually 1 inch, but he associates 1 inch with that dude.
Oh, because that's more the literal thing.
Yeah.
You know what? That one might be okay.
Maybe.
That one might be okay. So we're pretty much just complaining about the colorblind thing.
But yeah, and then even in the first movie,
if I read
you think there's other stuff too? Yeah, okay.
Because I didn't just feel that one line. I just thought he was too dumb.
Do you guys think like Eric does, that he is too different from what he is in the first movie? Or
I don't.
Like I said, I didn't go back and watch the first one, so I really should have to get in on this conversation.
Well, do you remember that he was green? Because he's gray.
Yeah, I noticed that. All right.
Completely different character.
And he does, but in the first movie, he does call Gamora.
They look
like
exactly the same. I love the idea that he's colorblind and his color changed. I think that's hilarious. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Connor.
Well, if we're gonna badger on the colorblind thing, I was kind of being sarcastic about that, but he does call Gamora green in the first movie at one point.
Yeah.
Oh, he does? Well, then.
That's a huge revelation.
You look exactly
he called
the
her,
same.
Maybe
But,
it's the hair in contrast. I don't know.
Right after that, Rocket says, "Dude, he's blue." And then Drax has this look like, yeah, obviously he's also blue. Like, it's really weird.
I thought it was amusing. I thought it was funny, but yeah, I don't know. He was.
But beyond that, I like that he's laughing all the time. I like that he's kind of already come to.
He's loving life.
What? Yeah, he's like
he's gotten over the deaths. And
he has this wonderful sense of it.
But it's still there though. It's still there though. It's still there. I like that a lot. That was a good image, having Mantis crying while he is kind of looking happy. I don't know what it was. I really liked that. It's again visual storytelling that James Gunn really ups from the first film.
I think he's using humor he didn't used to understand as a defense mechanism.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Now that you say that, I think that's part of maybe what it is. You know something I didn't like on second viewing? When they go to Ego's planet, and he has this real sense of awe and wonder, this like childlike sense of wonder, and he pokes the color bubbles and they blow out, and he's laughing, and he's having such a great time. And then later he refers to it as a dumb planet. I don't understand that. He loves this place. Why does he say that?
Going back, this has nothing to do with what you just said, but this just
no, that's okay. I'm done with
talking about Drax for a second. It is really interesting that you're talking about like the humor that he once didn't understand, because it is very much like we use humor to deal with things that are so beyond our emotional capacity. We make light of them, and so that does really make sense that he has really taken to kind of be more of like a jokey character, but he does have that internal sadness. That's actually really kind of interesting, actually. That like maybe him understanding humor has helped him to kind of put that dark, tragic past of his into like a certain place where he doesn't forget about it. And it's not that he's like over it emotionally, but at least knows how to deal with that because he understands humor in a new way that he didn't used to. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and clearly everybody has been influenced by Peter's sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I liked it. Like it's kind of Peter. This is interesting. The Milano is kind of Peter's world, and everybody's living in it. But like it kind of starts off that way, and they've now got this kind of sense of family. So they've come to like sort of a harmony, even though they're somewhat dysfunctional. So they're all influencing each other, and in a way that's kind of like Ego having his own planet, but Ego really does have ego, and Peter doesn't have that, and he doesn't want to like run them or make everybody the same as he is. I don't know. I like that distinction. Let's see if anybody in the comments wants to steer us in a direction here.
Well, you told everyone just do their best thing, worst thing.
I did, and there's still a bunch of stuff in between, even though I asked folks not to do that. That Dope Channel says, my best thing was that Father and Son was already queued up when Quill got the Zune, meaning it was the last song Yondu heard before deciding he would one day give it to Quill. That's interesting. I kind of... Yeah, I didn't think of that. I mean, it might have been the last thing queued up. I thought maybe he just had.
There's some to me like he.
There's some time.
I thought he like searched through it and
There's
found
some time that passed. I think he had the opportunity to look through things, and he was like, "Well, this sounds thematically relevant. I'll play this song." That song made me tear up. I like that. I like that selection a lot. And
there
I
were
also
people crying in my theater. Like a lot of people were
I
crying.
also like that. Moving forward now, it doesn't have to just be an 80s nostalgia trip. As far as the music goes,
it can at least make it into the early 2000s.
That's right.
That's what I hope they do with the third movie, because the thing is, like, Peter doesn't know what Earth's culture thinks of the music that's on that device. So there may be songs that it would be like hilarious to see like a 30-year-old man listening to that he might like, because he doesn't realize they're not for him. Like, they're
we
not
don't necessarily know he has
marketed
good taste. He just has those two tracks. He could be listening to Backstreet Boys and Shinedown, not Shinedown, Nickelback.
What if
he
there's
could listen to
something?
Nickelback.
There could be
Yes.
things.
He should listen to Hero by Nickelback.
Wouldn't it be really, really amusing if there were like garage bands and stuff on that, like people nobody had heard of, and if he heard things that he liked that are not just like outdated or people. I mean, I think there's a lot of songs that are timeless, and the Guardians movies have certainly brought us some of those. But I think brought some of those back into popularity. But I think it would be really funny if there were songs that nobody's ever heard of, and he said the same thing you said about some of these other songs, where he's like, "That's one of the greatest guitarists of all time."
I would love to find out that Star-Lord actually has terrible taste in music.
Yeah.
But just happened to have his mom had good taste, and so the only music he had were these two tracks of.
But you mean two tapes? But the problem is with the music that's on those tapes, that would have formed his musical taste. So he wouldn't have bad taste. He would just like things that sound like those things, probably. You know, and he'll hear things that we're all accustomed to and be like, "Wow, I've never heard of these." Like you know, his like 9 Inch Nails would blow his mind. You know, like. Here's a super tiny, stupid nitpick that I'm going to bring up because it's my show and I can indulge myself. I mentioned this to Eric yesterday. Eric and I had an argument on how we felt about. We had a few of those. We had a few arguments. And one of them was about how Eric feels like Star-Lord knows too many things or remembers too many things from his childhood.
And this goes back to the Marvel Mania we did on Guardians.
Yeah. And that got me thinking. He seems to know too many of the names of the people that made songs that he likes without liner notes.
Yeah,
because the tapes don't say the artist.
Like
the song
the first tape is okay because he listened to that with his mother, but he got the second one from her after she died, and it's a tape by itself without a case, so she couldn't have put liner notes in it. So how does he know? Who made the song?
He shouldn't even know what the songs are called.
Yeah.
No.
That's the question.
He should. It makes sense that he does, because they're listening to Brandy in 1980 before he's even born. And so she probably would have heard that and told him that Looking Glass made that, because Looking Glass...
That song, okay, that's fair.
And so I also think that he liked that music, and she showed him that music and told him who the artists were before she made that record so he could recognize it. Now, years later, would he still know that? I don't know. But I do buy that he would at least he would at least have heard the names of the bands who made the songs.
That feels like that would be real far away. I buy it for the first tape that he's been re-listening to this music over and over again. Well, I don't know if I buy that he's been re-listening to the tape over and over again because tapes stop working. But
those tapes make it through a lot, man.
But the second tape, I don't buy that he remembers any of the artists on that. That's not constantly been in his mind like the first tape was.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
I don't know, but Connor's right. I guess initially I was assuming that she was introducing him to songs with those tapes, because that's what my mom did with mixtapes. I've talked about this in other videos before, that I have this kind of connection to the whole Star-Lord tape thing because my mother did the same thing with me. But and I have the very first tape she ever made for me from 1990 that I thought was lost forever, and we found it a few years ago. And played it for Jason, and I was terrified that the tape would get eaten, but it wasn't. But anyway, but you're right, Connor. She didn't just introduce him to music that way. It was stuff he already liked. It's just how much of it. This was a stupid nitpick.
It's okay.
And this concludes.
We can still ask about batteries.
Do we know if people in outer space have access to the internet?
Also, isn't it convenient? Let's just do the stupid nitpick. Isn't
Sure.
it convenient that batteries in space are the exact same shape and size as our batteries? They're round and like this big. Well, like this big.
I mean, some things end up universal because it just works, you know. But there are a lot of different kinds of batteries. I mean, like you know, I would see lithium batteries and things like that, you know, also. But
So here's a reference that I don't think was intentional. So David Hasselhoff's in this movie. By the way, that cameo wasn't funny, and it was actually dramatically very well integrated. I didn't laugh at it.
Yeah, isn't that amazing that it's a joke if you know it's coming, but it's not a joke first time around. Like
It's not. I mean, people laughed. I didn't laugh, but people laughed. But when Gamora's like, "Hey, that story of David Hasselhoff," and he says he wrote a magic boat, right? My little brother loves SpongeBob, and he's like, "Was that a reference to the SpongeBob movie where they use him as a boat?" And I was like, I don't know. Do you guys think that was a reference to SpongeBob?
It shouldn't be because he would have no way of knowing SpongeBob.
Well, I know, but it's a meta joke of James Gunn making a SpongeBob joke.
I don't
really
think so.
Deep cut.
That
Okay.
sounds like a leap to me. I think it was just her remembering the story wrong, so he arbitrarily picked
or
magic
mixing it up with a different story, and that is a reference to something else from the 80s.
Maybe he told her about Yellow Submarine, or
No, that's fair. That's fair. But I'm just saying, James Gunn writing it says boat because David Hasselhoff did something else. It's outside of the character's knowledge, but it's in James Gunn's head.
Oh wait, Hasselhoff has something to do with SpongeBob now?
Yeah, he
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, well then maybe that is that.
He's in the first SpongeBob movie, and they use him as a boat. Like he's like going like this in the water, and there's like a wake behind him and stuff.
When Hasselhoff came up, I thought, I think we'll see him.
Oh, really?
I really think we'll see him.
Did you look up if he sings the song at the end? Because I think he sings the song at the end.
He does sing the song at the end.
Okay, I thought so.
Yeah.
They show him actually singing the song. They actually show his face as he's singing it at the end, and you're like, does he sing it?
We discussed it. I thought he did. Cap thought he didn't. Don't yell at me.
I didn't say he didn't. I said I wasn't sure. No. What I said was I didn't realize the guy at the end was Hasselhoff.
Oh, okay.
I just didn't see it. But anyway, Ermin Scrood says his worst thing is the humor. He says the humor is really inconsistent, less cringeworthy jokes than the first one, but there are still a lot amount of cringeworthy jokes.
I think it has a larger miss ratio than the first one, but I also think that's because we have to end every scene with a joke, and none of those jokes play for me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that adds to the win-loss thing, is that every scene has to end with a joke, and I don't like most of them.
There were definitely jokes that didn't play for me, but I laughed more than I wasn't laughing, certainly.
That's fair.
I remember seeing a recent article about all this new information regarding the MCU divulged from Kevin Feige. And one of the things that he says is that humor, like the movies having a whole lot of humor, is something that will not go away anytime soon. And I was a little
Well, he's been saying that for a while. He said at least 2 or 3 years ago that the Marvel films will not go dark.
Yeah, he said. He also clarified, he re-clarified how there will never be an R-rated Marvel movie. MCU.
Well, they don't need it. They've got Netflix.
Yeah, they don't need that.
Yeah, I know.
I agree. Like I was laughing more than I wasn't laughing, but there were some jokes that didn't land. Like Taserface was funny the first 3 times I heard it, but by the time they were done with that joke, I was over it.
Okay, here's what I love about Taserface.
Interesting. Okay.
Here's what I love about Taserface. So, before this movie was made, I think even before James Gunn started scripting it, he posts online, "This is the dumbest character Marvel has ever created, and no one should ever use him." This whole movie is everything with Taserface is James Gunn's stand-up routine about a super obscure Marvel character. He's like, "Isn't this dumb? Everyone, look how dumb this is." I think that's hilarious.
Connor, I can see why you might think that it goes on too long, but I think the ultimate payoff of it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's just the same joke though. It's just Taserface. People laugh at it.
No, I get that, but right, but one of the Sovereign as super no nonsense as they are cracking up at that, I thought that played.
Okay, here's the thing.
They're crack often. Like, you suck. and then oh darn it when they're not working.
Yeah, they're not great at the whole no emotion thing.
No, I'm with you, but whenever they break emotion, it was funny to me. Like I get it because it's like they're the crappy Kryptonians.
But
they're
what's
like, no
weird is no one seemed to have thought that Taserface was a weird name until Rocket brings it up. And then everyone can't stop laughing at it.
But that's why it's funny, I think, because it's might makes right, or it's like whoever's the strongest, right? Like they're not even thinking about that because he's like the toughest guy in the room.
But he was
right
Taserface when he was working for Yondu, and Yondu didn't make fun of him.
But
maybe it didn't come up.
Is his name actually Taserface, or is it
No,
like
no, he made it up.
Face, and then Rocket like puts it together and calls it
Taserface.
No,
it's metaphorical.
Yeah, he says it's metaphor. Yeah, he made it up.
Okay, yeah,
it's his stage name.
Well, it's his cool pirate name.
And I will say it's funny. There's an actual comic book character who's a villain specifically for the Guardians of the Galaxy named Taserface, and he has a giant machine gun arm. I kind of wanted to see the machine gun arm, but I think it's funny that it's there. It gets so played out by the time it's finally over.
Yeah, there's another Guardians villain that has a machine gun arm, and he's a Tiger Man. So. Did
anybody else laugh out loud? Because the last showing I saw nobody laughed at it, and for whatever reason it's one of the lines that cracked me up. Did anybody else laugh out loud at the Ravager guy walking with Nebula who goes, "We've got a whole box of hands."
I love that.
We've got a whole box of hands.
My favorite line in the movie is like 10 minutes in when the
Rocket line?
Yeah, the Rocket line.
Yeah.
Where Rocket and Peter are yelling back and forth, and he's like, "I was being sarcastic," and Rocket goes, "Oh, well, you should use your sarcastic
voice.
A
sarcastic voice.
Now I look
foolish." That's so funny. We haven't talked about this. Some of the humor I didn't like was because it was raunchier than it needed to be.
You see, I didn't have much of a problem because that's how I am sometimes in my own videos. Like, I'm not sure what joke to say, so I just go on about organs and stuff.
So you go to least common denominator.
But here's the thing. This is not, at least for me, this is not a thing of not my sense of humor, or like it's too far for me. I like Reanimator. Like I don't have that. I don't have too far. My issue is
it's not even against the sensibilities of the film.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
It's for me. It's just too against.
I tend to think if you make a turd joke, you don't have a sense of humor and have no business writing jokes. But I don't know. That feels so easy and so I couldn't actually think of something funny.
And weird that early.
Yeah,
that you would have that kind of thing.
I don't know. It's
for me. It's just it's marketed as a family film. And so I have a tough time with it. And I said that in how we felt about, and we had some comments where people were like, well, it's PG-13. Parents should know what they're getting themselves into. Yada, yada, yada. First of all, PG-13 is so blanket statement now. There are all kinds of, like, at this point, you about
Awakens was PG-13.
You about have to screen everything as a parent. And speaking as a parent, this is frustrating. I wasn't even totally sure that Power Rangers would end up being okay after some things I read in reviews, so I had to go see it before I showed it to Jason. It's Power Rangers. Now, ultimately, I let him watch it, and I was okay with it. This, I let him watch too, but there were a couple things where I was like, I kind of hope he doesn't like pick up on that and start going around saying it. Like, it's one thing to be a PG-13 movie that's very clearly aimed more at adults. It's another thing to have so much cute licensing.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so there's this thing. I'm going to get social for a second.
Yeah.
There is this thing with humor that has changed, and I think at least you and I have not changed with it as far as children go. Some of the jokes that I think are inappropriate in this, I don't think that would be out of place in Despicable Me. I think G-rated films have some of the humor that I don't think is appropriate for children.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is appropriate for children. I think the penis gag is really funny. I thought it was really off-putting in the movie.
Me. You said it, not me.
It's in the movie.
No, he's just saying.
Boys have penises, girls have vaginas. I don't know what you want from me.
He's just saying he figured he would be the guy that would say that.
But I thought that joke was funny.
Today's episode of Geekvolution Spoilercast is PG-13.
But I thought that joke was funny for myself.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of kids in that audience, and I didn't need that there for them.
Yeah.
And I know that people are going to say, well, it's PG-13. It's a huge spectrum. I walked into Force Awakens, I wouldn't think it's PG-13. Nothing indicating that there's going to be anything like that in Force Awakens. And there wasn't. Rogue One as well. Also, PG-13. There's not jokes like that in Civil War. Like,
That's fair.
that's not fair.
Pixels was aimed at families.
Yeah.
Don't take your kids to that.
Let's not compare Guardians to Pixels.
No, I didn't. Bringing up a thing is different than comparing things.
We're just talking about PG-13.
We're just saying that here are movies that are rated PG-13 that are wildly inappropriate for your children.
Or not at all.
In fact, we should compare this to Pixels because this is way above that in the sense of a thing I could show my kids.
Okay.
I think personally, and I saw that movie, but I think the standards are changing, or we don't really have them like we used to. And like, well, you and I talked about this a lot, where there's a lot of 80s movies we grew up with that have things in them that aren't exactly for kids, but a lot of those also won't be marketed so hard to kids until
family
later.
Films. A little bit.
Well, even things that were, I don't know. It's a thing I question.
And they weren't lowbrow. They were just different time sensibilities. You know, E.T. opens with a bunch of kids smoking cigarettes, playing D&D, and I think drinking beer. Super weird.
And I'm not complaining about the occasional swear words so much as like just, you know, sexual references and things that kids aren't necessarily ready for.
You know,
and
sorcery is fine. No kid knows what that means.
And I could complain that we've gone too far across the board with violence too. You know what I mean? Like I don't want anybody to think, oh, Cap, you have issues with sex things, but like it's okay to see a whole bunch of guys get stabbed in the chest over and over again. No, I'm weird about that too. I don't know how I feel about it, but it's the world we live in now, and I kind of feel like I'm stuck in it. I don't know what to do about it. So yeah. I took my kid. I'm not fully comfortable with it, and so I feel the need to bring it up.
That's understandable.
What I kind of admired though about that scene regarding Ego's anatomy was that it sort of brought up this concern that a lot of movies have, where a human finds out that one of their parents somehow is not a human, but you never address what exactly happened then. The procreation process. So as opposed to here, where Drax is like, no, I want to address this. Give me.
That did seem like a thing Drax would say. That seemed like a thing first movie Drax would say. Certainly.
Give me a concrete answer.
And I like the idea that in a culture where everything is completely literal, that the parents at social gatherings talk about how their child was conceived. I think that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense.
Now,
to me.
I will momentarily quote a film that has both Michael Rooker and Stan Lee in it, Mallrats, in which Stan Lee says, "We didn't used to talk about those things. I'm not sure why you're so concerned about superhero sex organs."
Wasn't that regarding The Thing?
Yeah, it is. Well, The Thing, Mr. Fantastic. Brody brings up a couple of characters where he's like, can he do this? Is it like this?
And it's funny that eventually in 2015, the answer regarding The Thing was eventually answered.
That's true.
The answer is no, he does not.
Guys, what else have we not discussed that you guys would like to talk about? Everybody think for just a second if there's final thoughts you have, or actually let's not even do final thoughts yet. If there's just a subject that you haven't brought up that you really want to make sure we get to talk about. I feel like Eric and I have dominated a little bit. So if there's anything you guys have not gotten a chance to talk about, think about that for a second, and we'll answer any more comments from the chat that come up. Eric, do you have anything right off? There's just an aspect of the movie that we need to talk about.
Baby Groot.
Baby Groot. We really
haven't.
haven't talked much about Baby Groot, have we? Liked it a lot more on a second viewing. The big thing for me was I feel like an idiot. It took me a while to get to realize that it's not the same character. And once I realized that, I loved it.
And it makes a lot more sense for Rocket, why he's acting the way he is.
Yeah, that's true. Because he doesn't have because he doesn't have his friend to rely on anymore. And as a lot of people pointed out in the comments and how he felt about his sacrifice at the end of the first movie matters a lot more if it's not the same Groot.
Mm-hmm. I'll also say this: I don't think you can tell this story and have the themes be as strong as they are without Baby Groot, because Rocket's got to be a parent, and Yondu is, he says, "I'm you" to Rocket, and now Rocket is kind of taking on the Yondu mantle as a father to little innocent Groot, and also Baby Groot.
I think Quill more so, but I think they'll both serve that role to a degree.
Yeah, but also there's things about Baby Groot, the way he's incorporated into the plot and getting the ball rolling in little set pieces that don't feel contrived. And the severed toe gag is probably the funniest thing in the entire movie. I really dug Baby Groot.
I like the desk one.
Oh, the desk thing is so funny. And you know what? I groaned when that whole thing started. I was like, I've seen this before. This is not going to be funny, and it was hilarious. And by the way, I mentioned that I brought Jason. You know, the one of those he laughed at hardest? He lost it at the finger. He lost the severed finger. Yeah, my 7-year-old couldn't contain himself.
Yeah, that was the funniest thing about
that. Like the darkest joke, too.
It was really dark. And then he's like, tell me you have a freezer somewhere with a butt. No, then we shall never speak of this again. It's really fun. Yeah, but the desk comes in. That is my kind of sensibility through and through. It's a desk. Oh boy, that was great. That was great. That got to a hitchhiker place real quick. Sorry, go ahead.
Given the morality of those Ravagers, that person probably had it coming. And I kind of like the bit at the beginning where it was sort of representing what people were afraid this movie was going to be, where we focus on Baby Groot while all the cool stuff is happening behind him. And I feel like that was sort of their way of acknowledging that they were afraid that would happen, and ultimately it did.
Yes, I think so too. That was also a technical marvel, I thought. I thought that was astounding what they did with it.
I read it as them getting it out of their system early. Is it commentary on me?
I think so.
Is that what it is?
I think a little bit. I think they were saying like there are people that
this
are
is
going
what
to
you're
think,
worried the movie's going to be, and then it gets interrupted, and we actually get to see the battle.
and he's a part of, and he matters to the story, and he matters thematically, and he matters character wise. And you know what?
That's fair. I'll own up to that.
I'm even more okay by the end of the movie when he picks the right button. Once I realized, oh, he is maturing because he's a child. He's a toddler getting to early adolescence. Once you get to that scene right at the end, so like he's just playing around and being silly, and suddenly he's got that moment. And I think kids do this sometimes, where like he realizes the seriousness of the situation and he concentrates and he knows what button it is. Like for a while when
it should have been really easy. There's a crack across the bad button.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, that's true.
My favorite joke in the whole movie is just.
But could you imagine explaining it to Freddy?
No.
You can bring Freddy a bomb and say.
No, he'd just bring me a desk. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say my favorite joke in the whole movie is just when he asks Peter if he has any tape, and then you just hear Star-Lord going around asking everyone individually if they have tape, and then I love when he comes back and he's like, "Did you ask Nebula?" And he's like, "She was right next to Yondu. I'm sure if I asked Yondu and he said no, she would have said something if she had tape." I just think that was the funniest thing.
It made me. I don't really mean that I would want this, but it made me almost wish that Nebula had like a tape dispenser as one of her robotic appendages. Where like, why would Yondu? Was it Yondu or who was it? Why would any of those aliens know what Scotch tape is?
It was Drax. It was Drax who
Why would Drax wouldn't know what Scotch tape is?
That's true.
That's hilarious. Do you guys agree with this? They did a fantastic job of making the jokes that were in the trailer funny in the context of the film and made you forget about the trailer. I thought they did a really good job.
Well, and the tape joke was a big one because that was a big part of the trailer.
It felt like you were just watching a scene.
Mm-hmm. And when you watch it in context, you're like, oh, I missed the punchline. Like, I missed the setup and punchline of that joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once it often starts asking people, I'm like, oh, good, there's more to this, and it's really funny. Yeah.
They also do different readings of the lines, too. It have different inflections, and that also...
Yeah, well, that's pretty common with comedies.
We do that a lot, yeah.
I don't notice. I don't watch trailers hardly ever, so I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, more and more I want to go that route.
If anyone had tape, it would be you. Okay, let's see. That Dope Channel says, my worst thing was Groot and Rocket's line about Yondu calling Groot a twig during Yondu's funeral scene. Yeah, I wondered about that too. I was so unsure about whether or not that was even a joke. Like, what was the point of that line? I guess it's just...
Was it endearing?
I don't think it's endearing. I think it's that Groot is still a child and his mind is wandering, and when he sees Yondu's body, the first thing he comes like, oh, that's the dude who called me a twig. Like, he's not mature enough yet to understand what's going on at a funeral. I think that's what it's supposed to be. Man, I hate myself for how long it took me to realize, oh yeah, that's right. He's not the same Groot. He's a toddler. Anyway.
Hey, do you think in the Infinity War film he's gonna show traits of a millennial or something?
Yes, I do. I think he already is, except that's also what 80s and 90s teenagers.
And that's also, if this is 6 months later, that's like 5 years later, right?
Yeah, no, I think we'll see a fully adult Groot next time.
Right,
but it'll be interesting to see if we subtly characterize them differently somehow. You got the sense that Groot was an old soul, and it's really interesting to see a totally new, fresh, trying to figure out the world Groot who's insecure and hasn't found himself yet, just like every kid.
And what I'm wondering is, how long are we going to go before we press that reset button again and have him regress all over again? Because I don't think they'll ever do it again.
I don't think they'll ever do it again. I think he is off the table now. Because I thought of this watching this the second time, that the Groot that everybody that went out and bought the Groot toys is this one, but they didn't realize it. Like, everybody bought the dancing Groot. That's this Groot. Like, the Groot that we had in the first movie isn't the popular Groot. And I didn't even realize that. And so I think that's off the table. I don't think it'll ever happen.
Okay.
One thing I wanted to say was, I was worried the first time I left this movie that people weren't going to like it. I liked it a lot because it was so much different than I thought it would be, and it's so much different than the first film. But people are liking this a lot, and that makes me very happy.
Panel, what do you guys think about Gunn's statement that I'm not sure who asked this question, that the third film will have music from 84 to 2014? Did he come out and specifically say that? Okay.
2014 seems real far for his time.
Interesting that
Zune ends in 2014.
It's interesting that that those dates are my life if I died in 2014. Personally, I really want to hear some early Daft Punk. It's modern but fits the Guardians tone. I agree with that. Yeah, I'm with you. That'd be great.
Also, we talked about this before. What happens when Star-Lord discovers Weird Al?
Yeah, absolutely. There should be some Weird Al someplace in one of these.
Dare Stupid would fit perfectly.
Rasco, yeah, but then I'll just go back to Transformers. Rasco, what were you about to say?
I was just going to say, I really hope that he listens to Gwen Stefani. That's my hope. It's like a joke. Like, I hope.
Oh, sorry, Dope Channel. That was your question. For some reason, I copied the question, but not your name.
I hope he listens to exclusively songs from soundtracks from previous superhero films. I think that would be hilarious.
And Disney.
So, because you can get some classics in there. You can get Kissed by a Rose.
True.
Like there's a bunch of
Prince.
really popular. Yes, from Prince.
Yeah.
I think that would be hilarious.
As mentioned earlier, Hero by Chad Kroeger.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Dashboard Confessionals Vindicated.
There's that boy band song, whichever band it was that's an X2.
Where the duck has
we'll never say again.
Yeah, because I can't remember which one it was. I'm sorry. What was that?
Howard the Duck has his own song.
That's true. That's true. You should go around Howard, and then that would get real meta because he's like, "Wait a minute, I met that guy that one time." And I don't.
What if Howard the Duck shows up to play the song from Howard the Duck?
And he comes down in a giant egg.
Either that or Disco Duck.
That'd be good. Yeah, I'm sure we can come up with some reason to get everybody to walk the dinosaur.
Yeah, I was just gonna go there. I was like, Super Mario Bros. Kind of counts as superhero in my own rules. That can fit.
Me too. It's on my superhero shelf. I count it in my rule
Whatever things
as well. Yeah.
This made me think of a minor thing that I had. I don't know if anybody else had this. I talked to you about this. You didn't have this with the jumps from place to place to how you get there. Is the exact same effect as the Nova Core force field.
No, I wondered about it.
It's like
first.
the home.
You're right.
It's like this honeycomb thing, and it's the exact same design. I was really confused because they said jump, but then I was like, oh, are they just? Do we just have worlds where they just always have that force field and they're being let through? And then as they started jumping more, I was like, oh, you just used the same effect for a completely different thing. That's weird to me. With the same design. I'm not gonna say it's the exact same effect, but it's that honeycomb and it's yellow.
Yeah.
So I was confused initially.
I did like the part in that sequence where their faces start to warp. I thought that was really funny. It reminded me of like
and it's funny every time. Yeah.
and they were like that for a really long time.
And that is a classic science fiction thing to do that they're really parroting there. Where I say classic, like in a lot of like 70s and 80s sci-fi movies, you'll do some weird distortion effect when somebody goes to light speed or warp or something. We've got that in Star Trek 4 with that weird thing with like the president heads and you're like, what are you looking? And this was like the comedic version of that, I thought.
It kind of reminded me of him going to like something like Ren and Stimpy or like Rocko's Modern Life with specifically with the bulging eyes.
Okay, let's go ahead and go round robin real quick. Rasco, was there anything else that you really wanted to bring up?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, do you have any final thoughts, sir?
I liked the movie. It was nice.
See, isn't it really tough to show up to a spoiler cast with like no time to let the movie sink in?
Just one more thing. I will say this. I'm really excited to get to see what James Gunn is allowed to do after he's done with Guardians of the Galaxy, like after he's kind of moved on from Marvel, because everybody's going to want James Gunn to do something for them, and they're going to be willing to just say, make whatever. I'm excited for that phase of his career.
I would be interested to see if he would have the range to do something a little bit less comedic and stay at Disney and give him one of the Star Wars story movies.
That would be cool.
I think he could be right for one of those, depending on what it was. And I could see a quirkier one of those happen.
He could do the Wookiee movie.
Can we not have a Wookiee movie?
Can
we all agree just no on the Wookiee movie?
Let's let him make another Star Wars Christmas special.
Yes.
Yes.
Wait.
Okay. I'm all for that.
And I want it to be a shot-for-shot remake of the original Star Wars Christmas special.
Yeah, like make it a theatrical live-action film. But with a cartoon in the middle with Boba Fett.
Wait a minute. You said that the Guardians are like a band, so why doesn't he make a movie about that band from Episode 6?
That could also be cool. For
the
that.
blue elephants and the big bug
Star
guy.
Wars Cantina Band, a Star Wars story.
That's episode
Cantina.
He's talking about the one Jabba's Palace.
Oh, Jabba's Palace Band.
Yeah, not that.
A Star Wars story.
Or maybe
not those ones. The ones that sing the worst song ever.
I want that to be the name of the film, dude. A Star Wars story.
Maybe the villain of the movie is the Cantina Band. That's their competition.
Oh yes! Oh man, a traveling roadshow, yes!
And it would be really funny. Battling, trying to play that is really menacing. Where like now the Darth Vader music is Connor. Anything else you wanted to bring up that we didn't talk about?
You just put the thought in my head that people would actually pay to watch a shot-for-shot remake of the Star Wars Christmas special. That'd be amazing.
Yes, they would pay to see the Star Wars Christmas special because you still can't get it. People are paid to see that special in theaters.
I don't really have much to add. I thought this was a really good movie. This, I think, is better than Doctor Strange and Ant-Man. I think this is maybe, I like the first Thor movie more than most people. I think this would probably be in that range from there to Captain America, the First Avenger, somewhere in that range. I really liked it. I liked it personally speaking, more than the first film. But I think that that also gets points for being more ambitious. I don't think we talked about this. I really like how talky this movie is. It's like
Yes,
the first
really
quarter of this movie is an action movie. The last quarter is an action movie. The middle half, it's like a Richard Linklater hangout movie. It's like Dazed and Confused in space, and I really dug that. Yep, that's it. I like how talky.
I agree with all of that, except that Thor is anywhere near Captain America: First Avenger. Everything else, I totally agree with. No, I think it's and Connor, I think after 2 viewings, I'm with you. I think I like it better than the first movie too.
It's really good.
Good plot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I also like this one better than the previous one, mostly because we get to sort of know a lot more about the characters now. And I think my final thoughts have to do with the villain, because that's what I am. Regarding Ego, like Connor said, this is probably one of the best villains we've had so far, if not the best. And what's funny is the way that they do Ego, I think, is part of the reason why he's sort of the best is like over at Disney, they're getting criticized as of late for like having most of their villains be these supporting characters that turn out to be the surprise villain at the end. But I think that's why Ego in here is the best because of that, because of the shocking surprise, because I didn't see that coming, even though there was everything that was pointing to him being the villain, like the fact that Ego is a villain in the comics, and Peter's actual father in the comics, Jason, is also a villain, and I should have seen that coming, but I didn't. And I think they really got me used to that idea of him being a good guy. Anyway, my final thoughts is that after Guardians 3, James Gunn said that he's toying with the idea of doing a Groot and Rocket movie. And if that's the case, I want to see Walrus and the Otter and all of that Rocket, all of that Rocket backstory stuff. I want to see all of that. The clowns, everything.
That would be a good place to make Howard the Duck a supporting character if you didn't want to give him his own movie again.
Yeah, if he doesn't get a movie. Or that could be like
I much prefer a Groot Rocket spin-off movie than that rumored Groot movie.
Yeah. Yeah, Rocket would have to be in that movie, I think. Groot's got to have somebody to have exchanges with. Oh, you know what? That was another question I had. I'll make this my last thing. Another question I had was, Groot is a toddler. Who taught him his language? Did Rocket teach him his language? And then Rocket has that line where he's like, we need to have a conversation about your language. But I'm like, are you born knowing it?
No, so I think he picked it up because he probably hears regularly, but he speaks only in I Am Groot.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know how your synapses would do that. That's amazing.
Well, he's a tree.
Oh, of course. Man,
you
have these great, really, the ending is sappy, but maybe not. Well, you have these fantastic, Eric, simple explanations that just fix everything. I never would have thought he's a tree.
Wait, did you say sappy?
Yeah, I did.
He's a tree. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, yeah, that's what that was. But no, that was. You're explaining my joke.
You did it on purpose.
I'm sorry.
It was intent. It was deliberate. In the words of Gimli, it was deliberate. Anyway, final thoughts, Eric.
Gimli?
Yeah,
is that Lord of the Rings reference?
It was a Lord of the Rings reference. Yeah. Eric, throw us out another thing that you want to talk about if there is anything.
Oh, I thought we were doing final thoughts.
And your final thoughts. We're doing them together today. We're marrying them.
I don't know if there's anything else I want to talk
about.
What
a good wife it would be. Sorry.
I like this movie. Okay. I would like to see it a second time.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, man. This would have been a different conversation, maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe you would have felt exactly the same way.
I don't know. I'm going off my first viewing. I thought it was okay. I think, in a weird way, in comparison to the first film, it comes out in the wash for me. The things I like in this movie, I like more than the things I like in the first movie.
Yeah.
And the things I don't like more than the things I don't like in the first movie. So I don't know where that ends up ranking-wise. I liked this movie. I thought it was fun. I think it's a little on the nose. I think it's a little heavy-handed. But I liked it.
So that's going to do it for us tonight. I know this was a long one, but it's been a little while since we've been here, so I guess we're somewhat justified, and we had a good-sized panel tonight. I want to thank the panel for being here tonight. Thanks very much, guys, for agreeing to do it. Rasco, it was a nice surprise to see you, buddy. We didn't know Rasco was going to be here tonight. He decided to make an unscheduled appearance. Here he is. Poof. There's the Rasco. Thanks for watching live. If you did that, thanks for watching after the fact. If you did that instead, and we will see you again in a few days for something, I'm sure. I know I've got one video that I'm going to put up in a couple days. That is, I've got a Jason and I are doing a video about his birthday stuff. I'll get that up. That's not a big thing or anything, but that's a video. And then I don't know what the next movie is. It's probably Alien Covenant, I think.
Yeah, we'll probably do a How We Felt About.
We'll do a How We Felt About for that. And so I don't want to.
Not this week.
No, that's next week.
No, but I'm saying
there's nothing this.
Okay, cool.
That I saw. I looked up that.
It comes out the same day as Episode 3. Like Star Wars Episode 3, like when that came out on May 19th, that's when Alien Covenant comes out.
Oh, yes, of course. I remember that. Always.
Why would you remember that?
It's like a homing beacon of time for
Why
me,
do you know?
Star Wars
Why do you know that?
I do know that.
I don't know. I think Connor remembered that.
I know that. Yeah.
And why are you saying it as if any of the rest of us are expected to have that reference point? Like,
I do know the release date of the first Star Wars. I know that offhand. It's May 25th.
I just remember all the advertisements and TV spots. May 19th.
This is weird where this all went. Anyway,
you know, I once went to a concert, and it was on April 18th, and my friend was driving the car listening to the music for the band before the concert. Days before we went there, and a car pulls up next to him, hears the music, and then just goes, April 18th! And I've remembered April 18th for forever.
Anyway, so at the very least, we'll see you again for How We Felt About on Alien Covenant. Probably won't be a spoiler cast on that. And I don't want to promise when I'm coming back. I am halfway through, almost right at the halfway point for the first draft for my novel, which is why I'm taking some time off. And so
everyone dies at the halfway point, so it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the second half.
Yeah, I like to write myself in those corners and see if I can get out.
The entire universe is murdered.
Yeah, and it's weird because I'm worried about copyright infringement a little bit because I'm thinking the last 43,000 words might be I am Groot. But I don't know if I can get away with that. Anyway, so I'm working on that, and I'll be back.
Grammar would be difficult.
I'll be back when that's yeah, like where the commas go. I'll be back when I'm finished with that, and so it may be 3 weeks, it may be 6 weeks. I don't want to promise anything, but you'll see us here and there with some other things. And I've got some videos in the queue that need to get edited that will come up after that. I'm not sure yet, but anyway, thanks everybody for watching and for your patience, and we will see you again shortly. Good Plot had a finger up. I don't know if that was...
What are you doing with this hood? All video you've been doing this with this hood.
There might be something from me soon.
Oh yeah, you got another of your villain videos?
Yes, depending on whether or not my computer decides to keep being a jerk. So it's all done. I just need to get it out there so my computer.
That is so loud. I want to thank Danger Diabolic for making it to the show. Anyway, well, everybody, thanks always for watching. We sure appreciate it. We'll see you again next time. I am Captain Logan. This was Eric Holden. This was Connor Nielsen.
I'm your daddy, boy.
Mr. Goodplot.
Star-Lord's grandpa is still alive.
Jackson Rasco.
I'm Mary Poppins.
Y'all,
I'm Mary and I am Captain Logan saying good night